Okay, I'm joining the meeting. Just, okay, but I need to. Sorry, I'll turn my
Sorry about the reply all.
Oh, my email specifically said.
I know, and I know it did. Literally, I went
to scold you. I was like,
No, it didn't. I was like, and I read it. Do you know that I intentionally took one person off so that I was like, I took you off and just had the PROSAB email because I was like, well, I'm not technically replying all because I took her off, but I get it.
You applied to the.
It's-
You applied to one of.
I thought it was more of me reminding the whole group, like, do not start to engage in people's.
Okay.
That's my job.
I was
You'll
like,
see me
if
do it a
we're
lot. where I come in,
clarifying-
Don't do it.
It's so hard
We're
to remember.
clarifying something. I was like, we're not talking about new stuff.
Yeah, but then if she had responded all, it creates a meeting. That just one, if
And
Casey
I
go
will-
back.
And I will never do it again.
so sorry.
Oh, no,
See?
I can follow.
With your response back, then I was like, was I rude?
No,
No,
nope, you were never rude, Miranda.
You felt stupid, and that was totally understandable because that's how normal.
Right, I'm still learning. I'm still getting the ropes, you know? And I knew someone was gonna say that. I just listened to. Oh, here we are.
Yeah, for those
Those
minutes, I like,
your section.
that was just like what we had
And I have no
discussed
extra.
Yeah.
at the
time.
time, so I couldn't,
Section.
like, I couldn't like, I can't like
That's just.
I think a lot of
update them, you know what I mean?
Um,
So, but we got the update from
that-
Miranda.
Not
that-
even
Exactly, so it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, and it was.
But I think you were more like, you should like.
Volvo has a certain.
Clarify the minutes, be like, am I insane? This, and then,
They,
yeah, so.
Hi, please don't forget your name, please, wherever it is.
It was so wonderful to see everyone
Oh, here it is.
so heavily.
What, and so they were, we were.
All right, we got two people here, so I'm calling the meeting to order.
And you have Jesse online? We see it,
Yeah.
Okay.
So 4 people here and 1 online. Hello, everyone. Oops, I'm muted. Oh, no, but I'm talking here. Okay. Sorry, it was just the thing before this. I know, shifting my focus. So yeah, meeting's called to order. Casey, here. Kat, here. Kate,
Here.
Jesse,
Here.
Alex.
Here.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so Lindsay, CT. Sam. Not quite here yet, hopefully coming soon. Alrighty. There's Lindsay. Great. All right, so welcome to everybody. I don't believe we have any members of the public on today, but if I'm missing anyone who's online, let me know, speak up. So the first item on the agenda is the approval of the October minutes. Does anyone have any questions or edits to the minutes? Would anyone like to motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve the October minutes.
Second?
Great. Let's.
Adorable.
Later.
I like you just saying adorable instead of squealing.
Interrupted vote.
You want to vote?
Hi.
Look, you have a good head of hair.
Oh, we do have a member of the voting.
Extraordinary, little chunky monkey.
Very cute.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Great.
Yeah.
Very
Pete Jacket is
sweet.
the cutest darn thing ever.
We're all talking about how cute you are.
Online folks, you missed the cuteness quotient go up by like 300%. Sorry about that.
I think Jesse wants to say that.
Jesse, we can't hear you if you're trying to say something.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I agree. Objection.
What's his name?
Ariana.
Hi, Ariana.
We call her
Oh,
Ariana.
Ariana's there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why we just all lost our
Put her
mind.
in front of the camera.
Where's the camera?
Speak, I feel. Sam,
Cute.
talk. Sam, you have to talk more.
Don't you, Ariana?
Oh, yeah.
Ariana has to vote for you, Dan.
Ari, can you see?
Nope.
Can you
Here,
see her?
hello.
Yeah, I can see her.
Oh, yeah.
Can you
Oh,
see
here.
her?
That's great.
Okay.
I think it's the owl. Do you guys have the owl in the middle of the room?
Yeah, we have the owl. It just takes a minute when a lot of people are talking. He doesn't know which way to go at all.
You told.
Well, it actually shows 360.
Right,
The
it
owl
should
does,
at the
yeah.
top show
Rad.
360.
Oh, yeah.
If I turn that way, you can kind of see, you're like right.
Yeah.
Top of it.
Great.
Oh, man. How are we supposed to be concentrate now?
Crazy, right? Okay, so we had a first,
There's gravy at the meeting.
right?
And butter.
So, wait, we have to vote on it, right?
Oh, sorry, yes, we do, sorry.
Okay, Kat. We're voting to approve the minutes. Lindsay?
Approve.
Becky?
Did you say Jesse? Yes, I approve.
Alex?
Yes.
Sam?
Yes.
Kate?
Yes.
Casey?
Yes.
Lovely, thank you, everyone. All right, so the next item is public comments on non-agenda items and letters from the public. I believe we have one member of the public in attendance. I don't think she can talk yet, but
You have anything to say?
Yeah.
she did coup,
Yeah.
just in case.
So-
Make great.
No, for
remarks.
the record, put it in
For the record,
notes.
she
Yeah.
said,
You have your first public record.
I think we should listen to a song or something in commemoration.
the children are our future.
I
so.
That's true.
So we did have, I believe, 3 emails to the PROSAB email address. And if I'm missing any, please let me know, but I went back through to try to make sure that we just recognize them. So we had one email from Alan Apt, who I believe is a member of SAB. It was just an FYI on state actions on climate preparedness. So thank you, Alan, for sharing that with us. We had another email regarding community members' concerns about the Nederland rink development, and Miranda did respond to that. And as we'll hear in the update later, that's sort of on pause for now. So I believe that's been addressed, although, you know, we'll want to keep that person in the loop down the road. And then, and then we had an email from Tanya Corbalin, trustee Corbalin, regarding some just thoughts and ideas around the pump track, related to a project that she's working on. I don't know if did everybody get a chance to read that or see that?
I did not see, I didn't get a chance to read that one or see it.
Okay, you're all,
When did she send it?
So a while.
October 24th. Yeah, it was a while ago.
Okay, so that's why it's not top.
Could you just brief us quick on that?
You know what?
Do a super quick recap. Could you just brief us real quick with a short recap?
Yeah,
The gist?
yeah, the gist of it is, she's in favor of the pump track, as I think we all know. And she was saying if there is, you know, because there is some opposition to the currently proposed location, which again, she said she supports, well, she implies that she supports, but I think we know she does. She was suggesting that we consider the location that they're building, that they're currently looking at to build the performance center, which I guess is down by the water.
Yeah.
Because of some sort of topography issues with it related to a performance center. So I think that was, you know, just an idea. I think there's been, so we can certainly discuss that if people are interested in discussing that. But generally, I think she was just sharing that as an idea to put on the table.
We might need it on the table. We'll see what happens as we move forward, so. It's good to know.
I put it in the chat. Are we using?
Nope. No.
No one can see the chat that I just sent her.
We shut it down last time, didn't
Why
we?
could I send one then?
I didn't shut it
I
down.
can see it.
I can see it.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, no,
Oh, yeah,
I'm supposed to shut it down. I forgot we decided that. Sorry, you saw it,
I'm
and now
happy
you're
I
about to
raised
not
this
see
issue.
it.
I not
So
respect
read it really quick.
Weird.
I can't unsee it.
Unsee it. There you go. Now it's gone.
Can't unsee
Sorry.
that.
I was like, what are you talking about?
It is
Gone now.
It is a good use of it.
Gone now.
But
Sorry about
thank
that.
you for that.
That's good.
I tried.
You did good.
I liked it. I was grateful for a moment.
But yeah, so I think that's it, unless anyone, I mean, we do have the pump track discussion later, so if anyone wants to bring that into discussion, I think, you know, they're welcome to. Yes, I agree. So yeah, anything else? Any members of the public I somehow might be missing? No. Oh.
Without
Take your little visitor. Oh, I do.
Public is leaving.
Those are Alex's.
Yeah, I do need my car keys.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Wait, just to be clear. She's like, no. There we go. Thank you.
We have a thief. All right. Bye, y'all.
See ya.
Bye. All right, cool. So we can move on to informational items. So my first was just some housekeeping stuff related to the agenda. So as you'll see, I've now put our 2023, this was a suggestion made by Jesse at the last meeting. I've put a standing agenda item and the list of our 2023, 2024 goals on the agenda, and I'll do that every month. I think to clarify that we'll put that on there such that we can give updates on the goals if there's no larger discussion, right? So like, if you just have like a 3 or 4 minute update on something, but there's no like discussion or action item, then that's great. If you do have a larger discussion on a topic like the rink or the pump track or anything, and especially if there's gonna be a action item associated with it, you do still have to send me the agenda request form. Because otherwise there won't be enough time allocated to it, people won't have the background, and if it's not on the agenda, we can't vote on it. So just to clarify, it's only if there's like a super quick update, but nothing else. Does anybody have questions about that?
No, I like it. I think it keeps it like in the forefront for us and I'll be like, oh yeah, that's what we're trying to hit.
Yeah, cool. So that's all.
Did we ever assign any, because I see some bullets without anyone's name attached.
Those are Nikki's goals.
Those are Nikki's, but
Yeah.
is PROSAB, like Sam and I aren't on the pros. Well, I guess the pros is their choice.
It's because it's there twice.
Okay.
Yeah, and then you're on the rank. You were on you're listed there.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right, I didn't write the pros people twice. And then basically the other two, at the meeting, we had decided that Nikki would let us know if and when it's helpful to have someone
Okay.
from PROSAB engaged. Although if someone's interested in specifically any of those two things, then they should definitely reach out to Nikki.
Okay. Thanks for the reminder. It's been a while.
Yeah. And I think also because I know, so Lindsay and Kate, I know neither of you has sort of a thing on here. So I do think if there's something you're interested in getting involved with, especially, yeah, if there's something you're particularly interested in getting involved with, just reach out to the people listed one-on-one. Reach out to one of the people listed so we don't accidentally create a meeting. So don't reach out to both of the people listed. And in particular, the volunteer program, Casey and I talked a little bit about, I have some commitments coming up that I may need to step back from that a scooch if I still want to do the chair thing. And so I know in particular that one is open for some additional assistance. So. Anything else? Sweet, Nikki. All you, staff report.
All right. In my staff report, the BOT has requested that I add all of my strategic goals for the BOT to my staff report, so this staff report is pretty heavy with my strategic goals. The PROST, for those of you who don't know, PROST is Parks, Recreation, Open Space and Trails Master Plan, is being updated in-house by a committee of 4 with edits being reviewed by the PROSAB board. Currently, we were working on chapter 3 and this is the staff report for October. So currently we were working on chapter 3 and have applied for capstone students through Dr. Cog to assist with surveys and other community outreach. The SMS, which is the Safer Main Streets grant, that would add a paved sidewalk, take out the crusher fine sidewalk that goes from the roundabout to Tungsten Village and put in a paved sidewalk, a new crosswalk at the library, a new crosswalk at the visitor center, removing the crosswalk that's currently at the rock shop.
Yep.
That grant is slated to go into the RFP process in February and March of 2024. Construction would then start in April to June. We are under deadline to have the project completed no later than April of 2025. The Barker Meadows Park GOCO grant final report was submitted and accepted by GOCO. It's a huge relief and a box checked off for our strategic goals list. The hope with this area is to continue to revitalize the dirt field in efforts to reclaim the entire space. We're currently working with JVA as our town's engineering company to have drawings and estimates worked up for the rain garden area that would be created near the musical playground. We were well underway with an attempt to receive GOCO money to rebuild the ice. I'm cheating. I'm giving you an update. Maybe I'll just skip this piece. I'm gonna skip this piece because we'll give you an update in a moment. ADA improvements at Chipeta Park is being driven by a community member. The citizen is looking into a grant through Colorado Department of Health with support from me, and they have support of a committee of community members gathered to help fundraise and gather support for this project. Metropolitan Football Funds, we are working with community members from many different organizations to help us decide how best to distribute funding received from the sale of the Broncos. We're working on creating an evaluation criteria form that a group or a person could fill out to request some of the funding. Our group would then come back together and grade requests and distribute funding. $5,000 of this money is being set aside to run a junior firefighting camp in partnership with the Nederland Fire Protection District in the summer of 2024. I had a group of New Vista High School students, and they brought 16 students to the town for 2 days to help with some mitigation work on town lands near the rink. Staff spent several days prepping the site for work to be done after several citizens with property adjacent to the site complained about downed trees. The history of that, the town went in and around the time they were putting in the rink and fell a bunch of trees and then didn't clean them up. So for the last couple, actually summers, I had some of the residents in that neighborhood complaining about it. So my staff went in and bucked and limbed all those logs, and then students helped to transport large amounts of slash and logs to the parking area at the rink, where it was transported to the sort yard by park staff. The work the kids put in was absolutely incredible, mind-blowing. I think we took 10 or 12 trailer full of slash out, and there are several piles of good logs. And for the second year in a row, town was awarded the outstanding management of a loss control program by CIRSA.
What's that mean?
So I manage our town's loss control.
What is loss
we do
control?
Yeah.
safety meetings, making sure that we don't have losses. We don't want.
Okay.
And so they come up once a year and give us an audit where I take them around to each of the buildings and make sure all the buildings are safe and there's no electrical or fire hazards, those kinds of things, slips, trips and falls, that our buildings are falling apart. And then we do safety meetings. I have a list of safety meetings that I have to keep track of and that kind of stuff. And they actually, CIRSA, our insurance company, when you go to their loss control training, they show my forms.
Oh,
That's awesome.
On how best to, like, on one of the best ways that you can keep track of and perform your loss control for your town. So second year in a row, which I've only been doing it for 2 years.
hey.
And I'm super proud. And it's a very pretty glass, pretty award. Blowing off my windowsill.
It didn't crack?
I got a little character. But it didn't break. The new one's at town hall. The last year one is in my office, and it's now got a little bit character. But it's actually, for the fall that it took onto a cement floor,
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Terrible.
Right.
Should have been worse.
so that is it for the month of October 20.
Sweet. Thank you, Nikki. Any questions?
Who's doing the Chipeta stuff? Who's the community member?
Cinda Cochin. She's on our zero waste board.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
And she has a group of people, and I'm not sure who the group of people entirely is, but I know that she's working closely with Tebow.
Okay.
Nice.
So, yeah, we could potentially not even need to get a grant. Here's a fingers crossed.
That's awesome. All right. Thanks, Nikki. And then, yeah, so the next one kind of rolls into that. So update on sort of what happened with Rink and GoCo, and then anything related to public outreach. So I think all three of you may be tag teaming this, so.
Hey, can I just say, Nikki, that is amazing. And super awesome to hear that you're getting recognized by the SURSA that way, even if it is kind of in the background. But I think it's super awesome, and I'm really, really happy and proud of you for that.
Nikki's a rock star.
Try.
I'm happy to start with rank because I feel
Yeah.
like I can do it very more succinctly because I know both of you have gotten the brunt of it. I think since we last met, I think when we last met, it was like right before we were like your meeting with GoCo, right? Like they haven't gotten that update, right?
Right.
Okay,
Right.
got it. Sorry, I'm trying to situate myself because it feels like so much has happened. I think when we last met, the grant application or the concept paper was due in like about a week. And we were going to meet with our kind of project team and meet with GoCo. Nikki and Miranda met with GoCo probably like the day after we met. And GoCo had been telling us, recall we didn't get selected in the first round, and GoCo had been giving us very positive feedback. And she even said she was surprised we didn't get selected in the first round, and kind of said we were on the right track and we just needed to kind of shore up a few different like community outreach pieces, and that would be good to go. Nikki and Miranda met with the GoCo rep after our last meeting, and an additional GoCo rep joined, who I believe is on the review board and in some sort of like manager position. Her name escapes me. And she basically kind of completely reversed course on what Alex, the existing GoCo rep, had been saying, and said, you know, this really seems like, like we don't fund a building. So she was very concerned about the amount of funds going towards the actual building versus the recreation. And then said if we took the building out of it, it wouldn't be a competitive application because we weren't reimagining the space enough, essentially. And there was still concerns about community outreach, despite the community outreach we had done by collecting pledges, collecting letters of support, going to the last farmer's market, speaking informally to neighbors, things like that. And that was just a week out. So at that point, we all met as a group again after that meeting and decided, they basically told us do not apply. So at that point, we were not able to apply for the round 2, which was due at the end of October. And we've kind of put the whole thing on pause, given the need to kind of comprehensively reevaluate the project. Is that a good summary of where we're at?
Yeah, and I think as a group, we kind of decided with rink and tennis, just giving a little space, obviously we hit this super hard, fast, quick. It was like trying to get it done on top of all of our regular lives. And so just felt like we needed a bit of a break. So our intention is to come back together as a group in January. But that's where this survey comes from. So GoCo really said, you need to do this like huge open question survey. Because the feeling was this was still being driven by, we had already decided what we wanted, and then we're trying to get community input on what we all wanted versus the community designing something and then us creating the design from community impact or the input. So we released that 2-question survey, which I sent to you the other day. One of the questions was, what would you want to see at the rink? And what I find very interesting is comments are like, I liked what you'd already planned. I like what you already wanted, which makes a little frustrated, but it's things like add a roof though. So those are things that we could really consider. The question becomes kind of building component, but my kind of takeaway in looking at that was like, people actually liked what we were going for. And now we have the proof by asking a very unbiased question. What do you want? We have extra support for what we were going for. So I think we can still, in many ways, stay the course. And we have to also look at other funding for the building. I mean, the building was the big piece. It was 670,000, and maybe we could even scale it back. But nonetheless, we have to figure out how to fund that building. So I think even cycle 3 for GoCo is unrealistic. I think we're looking at the 2024 cycle, hopefully 1, which I think is due in July, and we can kind of figure out how we're going to fund this building between now and then. But the other thing was, the thought was, well, we might as well just ask what everyone wants, right? It's like, if you really need that open-ended for GoCo grant questions now, you might as well just ask anything. So the other thing, and you may want to just dive into that at a future meeting, is like, what other recreational assets would you like to see in town? And you, of course, got a variety of different comments. The one thing I will say is really interesting is Alex had asked me to reach out to like peer groups to ask if they were ever asked from like GoCo to do this, and none of them were.
Yeah.
Most of them had advanced projects, and sought feedback on specific projects. So I did feel like if we go for a new GoCo, I think we need to make sure that our GoCo representative supervisor is a part of the whole process, and not trying to be hard on our GoCo rep, but I feel concerned about the feedback given to us, and then I have proof that that's not what's being given to other municipalities.
Can I ask what sort of projects those other municipalities who were successful, were funding?
They're just going through current applications, no successful funding, because I was asking about this cycle, and so Wheat Ridge reached out and they were like, no, we asked questions about our funding, like our cycle. And so he's never in his GoCo history ever asked an open-ended question like that.
Whoa.
I also say though that in their comp plan, of course, or their trails master plan, and some sort of master planning document, are a series of recreational projects. So maybe our pros will capture all of this, but he said they've never done this like big, prior to a GoCo grant, this big overarching survey. So I just found that to be very interesting that we were kind of told that we hadn't done enough public outreach, and I'm not sure I totally.
And our prior Prost plan said it as well.
Yeah,
Upgrades
that
to
they
the
wanted.
facilities.
And
So-
we raised, give the group kudos, they raised well over $100,000 in the course of just
Oh,
about 2
great.
weeks. Not in actual funds, but in pledge letters. And that, just 2 weeks, and I think we could get a decent amount of the way towards funding the building
Yeah.
through
Community.
community support. Go ahead, Kat.
So, first of all, thank you to you all and the rest of the team for all the work. It sounds really frustrating, so I'm really sorry about that. But we appreciate everything that y'all have done. And I think that the survey responses are really interesting. Like, I definitely want to spend some more time with them, but, I think that like what I was wondering, it was kind of what you were getting to, like, I wonder to what extent like any surveying that we'll be doing with Prost should be like filtered into like, so, cause like a lot of these went to, this mostly went to people who were already sort of like into the rink project, right? Like people who'd signed on.
I
Is
think
that
it was
right?
posted on town like socials,
Yeah.
so I think you were definitely more inclined to
Yeah,
take it if you had already committed in some
cause it went out
sense.
on email to everybody, right?
Yeah,
right.
yeah, but it wasn't just available.
Totally.
Yeah.
But I wonder, like, it might be a good template for like what we should do to sort of, as part of the Prost thing, like, this is a really good starting point, and we can ask these questions, like, push it out more, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
and like, see where that goes. Significant part of that, and then that just makes our argument even stronger, that it's like a really important town asset and that sort of thing. But yeah, like, I don't know, that seems really odd that they would have asked us to do that and no one else, so
Mhm.
I like wouldn't want to say that that's gonna make that all happy and perfect, but it does
Yeah.
seem like maybe this is a really great template, because these answers are really great, like, there's just such good stuff in here. So maybe it's a good template for, sometime in the spring or whatever. I know that might be too late for the rink stuff specifically, but like, put it out there, like, push it out, like, hardcore in like the spring to get a bunch of good stuff for Prost.
Yeah, I mean, I think if anyone watches the video, I think Alex has described right. If you ever watch the video, there's a video of that meeting. And Nikki and I are going in, we're like super excited, we're like super jazzed. And within 2 seconds, it was like, what? I mean, just
Like
the
record
whole
scratch.
meeting was like,
Yeah.
you've got to be kidding me. Like, it
So
just,
sorry.
it was very disappointing.
Yeah.
And, I will say, kind of also needing a break from rink and tennis, tension
They
got very
were
high.
blaming Nikki and Miranda for mismanaging the application, like it became very toxic, and I'm fine saying that on the record.
Straight up attacking Miranda.
Yeah, they were like, if you had listened to us, we wouldn't be in this place, and I've been saying this all along, and it was just,
Yeah.
it was not great.
I'm sorry, guys.
So we're taking a break in many ways for that as well, and kind of just told them like I personally needed a break from them. Like, it just was a lot. But yeah, the way in which it kind of ended was very disappointing, just in terms of relationships. And so there has been a request when we come back together to potentially bring in some mediators to just like get everyone back on track. I think we know that there's a tense relationship, but then when it turned on us as town and we were the ones really championing this, that was really disappointing to see.
Yeah.
Especially when the bulk of the work was being done, I would argue, by town staff.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else at GoCro that's worth like in the future just asking to talk to you about it? It sounds like to have that total switch is crazy.
Well, yeah, and that's why I think we're just gonna have to respectfully say to our GoCo
Yeah,
navigator, we expect your supervisor at all meetings, like.
Yeah,
She has to know that we were shocked.
yeah. Otherwise, it's like, oh, we're going down this path.
Right, and very strange when today we never met with her supervisor, and then all of a sudden the last meeting, some other person shows up, and it's like, and then our grant navigator never talked once in that whole meeting.
I know.
Yeah,
So,
she was on
It
mute.
sounds like potential mismanagement on their side of things,
Yeah.
more so than ours.
Totally.
That's
It was
interesting.
really bad.
It might be like a letter up the chain to be like, here's our experience with the GoCo grant, and we spent a lot of time with it. And,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know, and now here we are.
They
pushing
just-
everything out.
Yeah, they sent us on like a wild goose chase,
Yeah.
Yeah.
essentially.
There's a lot of time and effort put into something.
Yes.
Yeah.
To then be
Yeah.
slammed at the end.
And it's
Yeah.
hard too, because then the community, like you were saying, you wanted to get back to the community fast because, yeah, which I think you all did a really good job with, by the way, like circling back and being like.
That was all Miranda.
Yeah.
yeah, we wanted to make sure that people, and we'll probably push this, I don't know, I guess to your point, we probably won't push this survey out again, because I feel like when the time is right and appropriate, but at least I appreciate that 24 responses did go out. You know, and yeah, it was really important to me, especially if you pledged, for us to say like,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Yeah.
And more to come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there any reason we should put more weight on what that new liaison said about it can't be for the building, but it can be for reimagining the recreational space? Or do we feel like what we've put forth is reimagining the recreational space enough? Or do we just not really worry about her input at this point? Like, should we consider that more heavily as we go
Yeah,
forward?
I mean, I didn't really, when she said it wouldn't be competitive without the building, that surprised me frankly, because I felt we were enhancing the space, like we were making year-round tennis courts, we were making like just bigger pickleball courts, and we were, I mean, it's near Wild Bear, and we had like a story to tell about recreational core there and how it serves the community and
Yeah.
how these enhancements would allow it to serve, like making ADA accessibility, like that's reimagining, like currently it's not accessible to individuals with
Yeah.
disabilities, so like that struck me as a wild claim for her to make, but it was kind of like our hands were tied at that point because it was so late in the process.
Okay.
Yeah, they're really at this space of like trying to argue deferred maintenance.
Yeah.
And what we're trying to do is deferred maintenance and not a reimagining of the
Okay.
space. But I think these responses here say this isn't deferred maintenance. People want the tennis courts
Right.
moved.
It can
And
serve-
maybe the ad is up in the grant and adding a roof. Like that's all I'm really seeing
Yeah.
here
Throw the
is like,
contract in.
we like your design and add a roof. I'm not seeing any other feedback that says something otherwise. And so,
Agreed.
I'm wondering,
and we like that building.
you, just do you
Yeah.
feel like, how to say this exactly? Do you feel like they're being straight with what
Well,
is there something that they're not? I don't know why they wouldn't, but is there something that is not being said?
I think we were misled by because we've met with the grant staff before we even started on this.
Right,
I
yeah,
was like, is this competitive? Is this worth it? And we were told, yes. We were also told it was a super competitive grant after cycle one.
Okay.
But all we need to do under cycle one to cycle two was integrate the feedback from cycle one.
Mhm.
We did that, and that was public outreach. Like,
Mhm.
that was really cycle one's feedback. It was like, we want to, this feels too much being pushed by PROSAB ring tennis.
Yeah.
So go do public outreach.
Mhm.
And that's why we were so excited to come back and be like,
And
we did it. Not only did we do it, we had raised $100,000 in like 10 days. It was like,
Yeah.
we did it. And then it was like,
Big time.
oh, but actually,
We don't.
and so
feel
it's just, I don't know if it's that GoCo person coming back from a long leave and like not realizing the specs of the
Sure.
program. I don't know.
Like an
what that-
outlier. It
Yeah.
sounds like, the answer to my question is like, this might be an outlier.
Yeah.
And what we have done is sufficient, and this even proves it, this survey even proves further that like what we have done is sufficient.
Yeah. We just have to find the funding for the building. And we do think we should scale back the building. Like it was gonna be 2 stories, it should be 1 story. We can make better space. And so maybe we could drop it down to 450,000, but nonetheless, town doesn't have that. We still have to come up with the funding. But if we said, hey, community, we're gonna get everything else funded, but can you rally behind funding this building? There are comments in here just being like, I love the building.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So
awesome.
perhaps the ask becomes like, will you fund the building?
And then like back to that, just kind of whatever we're saying, is it worth reaching out to someone else at GoCo, like the director above that individual and being like, hey, here's our experience. Can somebody please clarify this before we go back to it? Because we just wasted all.
I think it is. In my opinion, yes, because,
Because we were led down this path and said like, we're totally on track.
Well, the supervisor actually even said when we first started that meeting, she said, I haven't really had a lot of time to review your plan.
Oh.
So it was just kind of like, oh,
Hmm.
all right. But then she gave us the feedback, we don't fund buildings, period. Whereas before, all we thought we had to do was outreach and separate the town of Nederland from Boulder County.
Right, and all she said too is that we won't fund the majority of the building, so and I asked him on the meeting, so if our match goes to the building and you're just funding a portion of the building, is that okay? And she said yes.
Yeah.
Like, all the old, and all of these are recorded, and so we probably could pull all the recordings too and say to someone higher up and go like, look at our experience and tell us why you too wouldn't be completely shocked
Yeah.
Yeah.
about the
I think
transition.
it's just being like, we're gonna apply for the 2024 round and we've received conflicting,
Yeah.
directly contradictory guidance last time. And we don't want to be like blindsided this time, and we want to know exactly what the expectations are.
Sure.
So we can build our application around those. Like, I don't think you need to be like pointing finger.
Right,
It's just
tattling.
like, tell us, like,
Yeah.
we want everyone in the room
Yep.
to tell us what we need to know, so we know it at the outset, and 11th hour blindside doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
I also, my guess is that this might not be the only time this has happened, so it might be, a good idea to go to someone.
Yeah.
'cause-
Yeah, it's the executive.
The woman who did tell, the person who came in at the 11th hour is on the review committee, so it's like, we do have to
I want to be
let
friends with her slightly.
weight to what she
Yeah.
says. We can't just be like, we
Never
disregard
mind.
that.
Yeah.
Right.
But, yeah.
All right, so
Maybe we asked just to meet with her and not with Alex, just.
I
It
say
might-
go high.
It might behoove us to befriend
Yeah.
her.
Right.
Yeah.
I really
With her.
don't worry about going above her because then it will.
Yeah.
yeah, maybe her first and then,
Yeah, and just be whoa.
Yeah, because we also don't know what happened behind closed doors there either, is like,
Yeah.
is that. Is she aware, hopefully, because we said in the meeting, like, well, that's not what you told us, like,
Yeah.
you have to understand, we're pretty
But
shocked.
then the meeting got
Yeah.
nasty, you said though.
No, the rink,
No.
the rink
Yeah,
tennis,
this meeting. didn't-
the rink and tennis meeting,
Yeah.
and specifically rink came after me primarily arguing mismanagement of how we approach this.
Mhm.
Right.
We're pretty nasty. To me, I mean, I at one point, I was about to walk out of the meeting, and I've never walked out of a meeting.
No,
before.
she was,
And I turned to Nikki and I was like, you have to take this over because I'm gonna say something I don't mean.
okay, everyone.
Like, you don't need to say that. And then everyone was like, well, I didn't mean to offend you. I'm like,
Every
how did that not
single-
offend you?
Every single one of those meetings, every single one, we've had to rein them in
You
and
sound
say
very
to them,
challenging.
we know there's history. We get there's history. We're trying to move forward. Okay, let it go.
Right.
Leave the past in the past. Now we're the town. Now we're the Parks Department. So I don't care what you want and I don't care what you want.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We gotta make a park for the community.
Right, right, right.
So put that stuff in. Every single meeting, we'd have to say something. Every single one, and they just couldn't.
so I'm gonna just, note that we're like 7 or 8 minutes over time on this, so we should wrap this up and
Yep.
move on. Unless it's just any one last thing that is critical to say, but we should move on. So
No,
again, for
we'll
us.
just continue to provide updates.
Yeah,
Thank you guys so much.
yeah,
Yeah,
and again,
let it-
just thank you all for all of
Yeah.
your work on this,
Let
and
us-
let us
Yeah, let us know how we
let
can
us-
help.
let us know if there's
Moving
anything we
forward.
can do, for sure, so, mediate. Not bad.
Sounds like they need some adults on their board or whatever.
Yeah.
All right, so we're moving on to Casey's recap of the Outdoorist Oath webinar.
Hey, quick question. Alex, are you qualified to mediate by any chance? Since somebody just said we can
No.
mediate.
I
That
mean,
was-
oh, was
No, and I think our intention, Jesse, was to engage, Steve, who the board
Okay.
has been working with
everything.
Rob and stuff.
Yeah.
Cool.
And have.
Gotcha. Okay, that's all. Carry on.
Yeah, right.
You need a neutral.
No,
Neutral
biased.
first.
I know,
Yeah.
I know too much. Go ahead.
Okay, so, thank you for letting me, do this quick presentation to everyone. The Outdoorist Oath is a nonprofit that I've been involved with, kind of just attending their events, and they do these educational, what they call stretch sessions. They've done some events in Boulder in person with like hiking and talking about, inclusion in the outdoors. So this session that they did yesterday is just empowering access in the outdoors, and it was led by Kyle Stepp, and he is a para athlete and a disability rights activist. So he's like definitely an expert in this sort of field. And I'll just say I'm not an expert, and so I'm kind of just wanted to recap, you know, from a place of an attendee what I learned, and I think some of it we can think about as we integrate it. As we talk about PROSAB updates, talk about inclusive language, and you know, thinking about how we design certain assets and stuff in the outdoors. And I do have the slides from the presentation if anyone wants them, so I'm happy to send them to you. Just don't reply all. One of the outset topics they talked about is just people with disabilities comprise 15% of the population, and that there's both visible and invisible disabilities, and that common disabilities can be physical, visual, cognitive, auditory, and speech, and that disability isn't a bad word. And Kyle also talked about the concept of ableism, and so that's the thought that people with disabilities are physically and mentally weak. And it's equating people with disabilities as being like sick or fragile, and that can be very harmful to people with disabilities. And that there's also fear, I think, for organizations and governments and to create inclusion for people with disabilities from outdoor spaces and make sure the programs are accessible. And he kind of grouped those into 3 different categories, that there's physical barriers to creating accessible spaces, like redesigning spaces, creating accessible restrooms, parking areas, and adopting natural terrains to be more accessible. There's also psychological barriers for organizations to create accessible spaces, safety and familiarity, feeling like they might not be doing enough, or feeling like they're doing it wrong can result in inaction. And then there's also organizational barriers that can be lack of knowledge or lack of appropriate facilities or lack of funding. But the key to overcoming a lot of these barriers is education and inclusion planning. And so the last thing I'll kind of end with is he gave some inclusive language tips, and I will say that, Alex, you did say earlier used inclusive language when you said people with disabilities for, you know, talking about the rink and stuff. And so that's the idea of talking about person first language. And so it's like a person living with a disability rather than saying disabled person. But there are some people that do want identity first language, and that they do prefer to be considered, you know, referred to that as such, but it's better to talk about, or it's better to kind of err to the side of people living with a disability, and then let those people kind of, you know, decide how they want to be referred to. And then another inclusive language tip or topic, which I didn't know about, was, you know, avoiding outdated terms. That language is always evolving, but I didn't realize that wheelchair bound can be considered a very offensive language, and that also using the phrase like suffers from a disability, and that those people will be preferred to be called like a wheelchair user. And also the phrase able-bodied, because even people with disabilities are able-bodied. They just need accommodations. So I thought it was a really great webinar, and I learned a lot, and I think you know, hopefully I can you know, bring some of that into like our pros planning and talk about inclusive language, and talking about, you know, we're designing, like we're talking about the pump track, we're talking about other assets that we want to bring to the town, and how we can make sure that it's accessible and make sure we're serving everyone in the community. So that's all I got.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stacey.
Are they based in Colorado?
No, I think they're based they have some people in New Mexico and some people in Bend, Oregon.
Okay.
But yeah, I think they just have a lot of ties, like I feel like with all the outdoor stuff here. They do a lot in Colorado.
One of their founders released a single with Yo-Yo Ma yesterday.
Yes,
Oh.
yeah.
Patty Gonia, the drag queen.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this is his organization. This is his nonprofit.
Like one of the founders,
There's
yeah.
a drag queen called
That's
Patty
cool.
Patty.
You should
Patty
follow
Gonia.
Patty.
Pretty
Yeah.
fun.
Wow.
Very cool.
Are there any resources that are like generally accessible so that we can all kind of get plugged in to like the language to use, the stuff you mentioned?
I'm sure
Like,
there are. I could reach out to them and just say, hey, I'm a part of the, you know, this Parks and Rec advisory board, and if there's any like resources you could provide to us as
just
we
like a
kind of-
quick reference book
Yeah.
that we could all read. That's like, hey, these are the updates to our language.
Yeah.
We use this, we don't use this. These are the things we're looking out for. Cause it'd be cool to just get like an up-to-date download on.
Yeah.
There's
I'd like to level up.
There's a decent one from the AP, the American Psychological Association,
Okay.
that I can send around. I
Sweet.
did a bunch of looking at this when I was working with Wild Bear. We were
Cool.
doing like a bunch of DEI work. And I found a couple, they're of course not perfect and they're always out of date, and APA is pretty institutional,
Okay,
not as radical as some, but it was pretty good.
okay.
It's
It's nevertheless a good place to start, it sounds like.
yeah, so I can also dig up a couple and
Cool.
try to send around. And there's some amazing like disability activists on Instagram, but yeah, so.
Cool, thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Casey. Any other questions?
Okey dokey.
We're next.
Let's do it.
You want me to start?
Yes.
Okay. So Casey and I met with Nikki on Tuesday, not yesterday, like I thought in my head, about creating a town, a parks and recreation volunteer program. And so, yeah, we talked about a bunch of different things. So one, we talked about sort of engaging volunteers on one-off things as well as building kind of an ongoing list. And so we talked with Nikki about upcoming priorities, which was primarily rink events and programs. So we're gonna sort of, we're obviously working very closely with Nikki on this and tag teaming. So she'll be creating like the calendar of needs. We talked about us/PROSAB can be doing more of the sort of like getting the word out and getting people to sign up and doing some of the back end work to create like a list and a database, or where can people sign up, or that sort of thing. And so, yeah, so we talked about sort of the primary needs for the winter being helping out at rink. And then for the summer, it's more like weed pulling and some other things, but we'll, kind of get to that when we get to that. So, but yeah, so I don't know, it seemed fun and good and lots of stuff to.
And hot?
It was really hot when we
It
met.
was really hot. in
2 days
the
ago.
office.
It was oddly warm in that room.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, I guess we learned from Nikki is like, it's not like we're starting from like ground zero in terms of creating a volunteer program. There's already some great volunteers that are kind of these mainstays at the rink that will kind of, I think they'll be beneficial to bring new people in. But there's already people that are kind of staffing given events. And so I think what we'd be doing in these next couple months are finding people to help out with, filling some open skates and some other, events that they don't have the dedicated volunteers for. And that it seems like, and then we're also gonna reach out to Peter, because I guess on the town's website, there's also a volunteer link or something about getting involved with the town. And so we're gonna work with him to see where he keeps that, or where the town keeps that, and how we can kind of build off of that. So it's not like we're starting from nothing. I think there's already a lot of dedicated and awesome volunteers with the town. And I think we're just trying to find a way to, staff it up and, get it to a better, more volunteer heavy place.
Yeah, and I think as we like dig into, I think this first year is probably just gonna be like really pushing the different events. I think down the road, I'm sure there could be ideas for like creating like little squads of like a weed pulling squad, or like a adopt a garden, or what have you, like stuff like that. But I think right now really the rink is the huge priority, and just like sort of building this list, or building recognition of this as like a thing, right? Like people, when people come, they're like, oh, what should I do to volunteer? And, they might find this in a Google search or like on a flyer or something like that, so. And also just figuring out like what's most useful really to have volunteers do, so.
And did we also say we're gonna talk to there's another like community center or who also has a volunteer list or group of?
The farmer's market has a huge list as well. So when the infrastructure's set up that we can send our
Send
people
out.
over, we've got a really dedicated team of people that love to help, so.
Yeah, and this is like related to this, which I alluded to earlier, but I'm actually going back to school in January, and so my life is going to become very busy, hopefully. Because I also need a job, a new job. But so I'm gonna be like super slammed, but I really want to stay involved in PROSAB and as the chair, hopefully. So I did mention to Casey that I may actually not be able to be like a really strong second person on this. So if someone else would like to be that person, I obviously would still love to do volunteer things, but so that is kind of open, just to say. So if somebody's interested in partnering up with Casey on that, please do. So
Yeah, I'm really interested. So,
Awesome.
Casey, we can get together. I'd be interested in like hearing more about what you guys discussed and what's already established.
Yay.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Lindsay. I think that's it, yeah?
Yeah.
Sweet.
One day,
Yeah.
one day.
Cool.
Does can we use, I hate to bring up Rink
Yeah, that's
after,
cool.
what was just
I got
said,
no
but can we, is that group able to volunteer?
The board?
Yeah, or their
They
members?
do, and
Okay.
they can.
Okay.
Yep, absolutely. And I have other just regular citizen volunteers,
Yeah.
that do their regular things, and they're all pretty excited about coming back again this year.
Mm-hmm,
But there is a lot that has to happen at the rink.
mm-hmm.
And so it's nice to have the consistent volunteers at the rink, because there's some training that goes into training the volunteers, but rink is also original that they're a volunteer, but they also get, for each time they volunteer, they get a free day pass
Mm-hmm.
to the rink, so it's kind of paid,
Mhm.
kind of, sort of, at least compensated.
Feel like a little bit of incentive to do it.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Totally great.
They get all the free hot cocoa they want. And
Listeners.
Oh, and the one thing, I don't know if Kat mentioned that the rink schedule is coming out early next month.
Yep,
So we'll know kind of
where any
what that's looking
gaps
like.
filled, and those
And
kind
I
of.
think we should totally do a group disco skate night or something like that because.
Would it be a meeting? Would it
It would be,
public?
you would publicly notice it, but that sounds like a great idea.
Skate night, I mean, I
Usually public notice.
skated since I was like 12, but you know, that could be fun.
Always. Like it's,
Do
that's,
we currently have a platform where volunteers can sign up and where we track who the volunteers are and if they've had training?
That's the thing that we would be working, that this crew would be working on setting up in the background, so.
Okay.
All right, so we move on to discussion items. Miranda, you are doing the pump track 2D concept plan, design update, and possible ballot initiative. I have 15 minutes. Do you
Yeah.
think that will be sufficient?
Yeah, and I wasn't at the pump track meetings, but I'm gonna recap it because I've talked to enough people.
Yeah.
So.
Do you want me to put a timer, or do you want to put it on the screen?
Will you
Which-
just put it on and flag me?
Okay.
Because I need my notes here.
Great.
So for the pump track, obviously, at the last PROSAB meeting, there was kind of conversation about the design. Nikki wasn't here at the time, and so just there was conversation about, you know, that northern part, right? Like, there was talk about maybe turning it asphalt, it should go, it should get redesigned, and so really the takeaway was go back to American Ram Company and redesign this thing. Nikki, kind of prior to that conversation, really noted that there's sewer that we didn't take into consideration in the design on the northern part. And so really where we're at is needing to locate the utilities, which the Sam, Jesse, Nikki team are working on, and then they'll start to redesign. I think there was kind of conversation in the last PROSAB meeting to kind of remove the dirt, which was really more of the kids area. The sentiment really to date now is, no, keep it, but let's just kind of, move the whole pump track down south a bit. So we're not dealing with the sewer issue, but keep the design in many ways just as it is, but just adjust it down. So really,
A little to that.
yeah, please.
And Nikki clarified, but basically it was just like, after we were on that meeting with Nikki, she was like, oh, it's really sort of silly. And I agree. If we pave over sewer access, if we need to ever like dig up the lines and do something, because then you gotta like truly redo like the track. And so it's like, oh, okay, for whatever reason, we hadn't discussed that beforehand. And so now we know, and it was obvious, like, okay, let's leave that and not touch that so that we
Even
can.
if you move it south.
Yeah, we just move it south a little, basically leave the design as it is, as they showed it to us on the 2D version, the general like layout, so that we always have access to our sewer systems. And that if we do have to ever dig up something, you still have your pump track and it's fine.
So they would just remove those like kid features, like the hoops.
Actually,
and-
we keep the kid features
Yeah.
on, because they're all dirt, so they're super easy to resurface. Whereas like the asphalt portion of it
Okay.
is, very challenging comparatively.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of feedback that people wanted to keep the kids.
Oh, I thought we got feedback from Tanya and the DDA that was like, we don't
Yeah.
want, we're not gonna give $10,000 for something that's a kid feature when there's a park right there.
So I'll tell the DDA feels the exact opposite.
Okay, great.
They felt like they
That
got
was
bamboozled.
That was, okay.
Yeah, maybe some, but there are many members of the BDDA who felt like
They were
they
good.
got played kind of and thought that there was a kids component. And now we took their money and took out the kids component.
Got it, okay.
Wait, but where was because the only feedback we had as a board was the email from Tanya. So
That's
where
right.
did the other?
That's a good question. Is that
In
just
a
the-
lot of other formats.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
A lot of other emails that came related to PROSAB questioning or DDA questioning the money that got spent. There are DDA members who do not support that they are spending money on this. And then supported it even less when there was a feeling that there wasn't even a kids component. So that's not out public. That's a lot of
But what? Yeah.
Was there a statement of what they funded, like when they approved the funding?
Yeah, when we went back, I mean, they funded a design.
Right, but a pump track design.
Correct.
So
Not
one
to
would
be
not assume a pump track design includes children's features.
So I don't recall, unfortunately, there's no recording of that meeting, so we
Okay.
can't go back and listen. I don't remember, and I was in.
No,
that,
I
so
will
I
say,
don't-
we talked about like a small area for children, but I don't recall, and I'm not trying to just like wipe it away. Saying like, oh, we're gonna do half of it, you know, like a
Yeah.
huge chunk of
Yeah,
it for
we did.
children's area.
Yeah. And the DDA is
We
not under
did
that
talk about like
perception as well.
having a children's area.
Yes.
One of the big sale points of the pump track is so that kids could learn how to ride bikes.
Yeah.
And having a kids play feature. And then we did talk about the pump track and also a bicycle playground type
Totally.
of thing.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people thought that was gonna just be part of the feature, was that we were gonna include the ability for kids to learn to ride bikes and to have play features. And it's at a children's playground at a park, so it should have those components.
And
It's
then,
better
yeah,
said.
and then ultimately, I'll just chime in real quick and then
Yeah.
you can finish like the total overview of it, but, you know, at that point, we were all like, well, we're gonna fund design, and so that was like the first iteration of the design, and so, you know, my initial opinion of it was, without the sewer understanding at first, was like, oh, it seems like a lot of kids are, like, could be smaller and be fine. And that's why, and that was what Tanya was saying. And then it sounds like in the background, there's a bunch of people saying like other, you know, like we'd really like to keep the kids area entirely. And then I was in favor, just personally, of when we learned, oh, there's a sewer line there that we need to maintain access to, like, cool, just leave it. Like, let's roll with the design they gave us and move it forward into 3D, but we still have to like technically move it on the map, or it was some random.
Yeah, Sam and I talked a little bit, it's
Yeah.
like, sure, you could go out to the community and say, it's the same design, just moved south. But it's not a good idea. You should
Yeah.
give them the image and try, because
Yeah,
otherwise people are gonna
exactly.
feel very manipulated still if you
Yeah.
try to say, oh, just imagine it looking somewhere, being somewhere else.
Yeah.
So really where it stands now is that the 2D rendering will come back to PROSAB in December for review before it gets converted to 3D. Kat looks very perplexed in her facial emotions.
Yeah. No, yeah. I'm sort of confused how we went from like totally not wanting the design. And there was a bunch of input that most of us haven't heard, and now we want the design is like what I'm confused about. Like, I feel like we should have access to any public comment on the thing that we're expected to.
Yeah,
eventually
that
make a
stuff I
decision
haven't
on.
necessarily seen other than,
So I wasn't in the meeting with
Okay.
American Ramp to say why that, all I know is that, what I would say is
and that's.
there are
what
issues
I
with
just had to see.
DDA being very split and incredibly, those who are split are incredibly disappointed that you all even have this money to begin with. And so
But to be,
that's
Right.
its own issue in and of itself.
But that's like.
And they
it's passed,
voted
but
on
What
it
I'm
when
saying
it
is that,
passed it.
like, on the very specific thing, like, we had a meeting where everyone was aligned that the design would change. But now,
yeah, and
That
then we
doesn't
went,
seem to be enough.
that's, the DDA's like conflicts within themselves is news to me. And that's not to blame you or anything, it's just like, okay.
So
yeah,
you're
they
talking about
voted
the
on it.
asphalt piece of it?
Yeah, it sounds like that was just because of the
Yeah, that was just a
the only reason it didn't get redesigned the way that we asked last time was because to put
Would you rather
asphalt.
have this part at the pump track or not?
Say that again.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know I was muted. I was just asking my daughter if she'd rather have the kids part or not.
I love
I get what you're saying, Kat. I wasn't in that,
I wasn't in
in that
that.
meeting. And I would
Yeah.
say,
I
I'm
guess
not
I'm
saying.
I'm not like necessarily commenting on the, like, what the redesign should be. I'm just saying that the process seems really weird, that like, we're not involved in any of this and we don't get to see, like, none of the feedback is coming to us, but we're expected to vote on the same thing that we said needed to
Well,
be
it's
changed.
the whole sunshine.
You're not voting
We're not voting,
tonight.
we're not voting.
No, I know we're not voting tonight,
So
but
I
are
think
we gonna
too,
see all this feedback?
in everyone's also defense, that a lot of that design staying the same was me saying that the design needed to stay the same because we can't have asphalt over sewer
Yeah.
lines.
Which
Yeah.
I get, although does it need to be still half and half? Like, again, I don't like necessarily, I think both
Oh,
are
yeah,
great. Like, I think
so-
a kiddo thing is great, but
I'll try and clear it up a little bit, because it is confusing, it's confusing a little bit the way it happened, and it's mostly just like a mix of, oh, Nikki wasn't here to set us straight at the beginning, you know?
We need Nikki.
And that's really what happened, and then we all
never go
thought
on
like.
vacation again.
Could never have a meeting without me
Yeah.
there when I'm on vacation.
Basically, and,
That was rescheduled. Yeah. I was here on Thursday.
A
so.
lot of other people were mad about the
yeah.
schedule as well, so.
So what happened, right, we had that meeting, we discussed that we all were like, yeah, we think it should be like more pump track, right? Like more asphalt.
More
pump track.
cowbell.
The meeting that our October meeting.
Yeah,
Talking about-
yeah, our October
Yes.
meeting. And then we're like, great, we're gonna go meet with American Rep Company, give them this feedback. And so we went to meet with them, and Nikki was of course,
I
on the
did.
call, and Nikki was like, hey, there's a sewer line there. We hadn't talked
Check
about that,
yourselves.
and it was like, and it basically limits that design to the edge of where the asphalt roughly is that we looked at, like no changes. And it was like, oh, we're pretty limited there. Like, we really can't make it go further down. If you're looking at the basketball court on a map, like to the right, we can't make it go further towards the pavilion. Otherwise we impact the sewer line. And so,
They need to just start with a flat surface for asphalt, but not for the dirt.
exactly. And so what we immediately were like, well, that's a no brainer. You know, we'll bring that back to PROSAB here and say like, we all met. Can't move it further, like new information that originally wasn't part of the conversation that we just didn't know about, and, you know, that's fine. And so it was just like, well, of course, we're not gonna impact our ability to access our sewer lines, you know? And so that made sense to me and to Nikki and Jesse and on the call. So we're like, great, we'll get you the coordinates of the manhole covers and the exact line of the sewer so that that American Rep Company can adjust it on the map down, so we know exactly where it is. And so that's where we are. And then it sounds like the DDA has whatever
The
their.
DDA part, I would argue is irrelevant in many ways. You know, I think there is frustration amongst the DDA that they didn't do a clearer vote because they disagree with the path PROSAB is on. Half of them disagree with the path PROSAB is on,
Well, and that's voting.
A cleaner vote about what?
about what exactly the design was gonna be,
Yeah.
where the design was gonna be.
No, I mean, if you're putting
Well, and
$10,000
yeah.
behind something, you should be more clear about what you're paying for, so
And this has been the challenge the whole time, is like cart before the horse, like, we don't have a design, so we have to go get a design.
Yeah.
You know,
But it's
so-
like, is it for a pump track or is it for a combination pump track
So-
children's area? Like, that seems pretty high level.
Yeah, we could see what that vote was specifically. I don't remember,
No, I'm not faulting you.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting.
No, the vote was, will the DDA give the PROSAB $10,000 to design a pump track? Because then the other critical part is, some members of the DDA don't agree with the location.
Yeah,
However, that was not a part of the vote. The part of the vote and the conversation was that PROSAB was gonna do the analysis to determine where the pump track should go. You did that analysis, you
Yeah.
identified Topeka Park as your location, but there are members of the DDA who feel
Right, got it.
wronged. But there's nothing to really, they're just concerned, right? This is a very divisive topic within the DDA board.
Got it. So like both on cause the vote was like, does this, like, cause they might be like, oh, does this qualify as a pump track? Because half of it is a kid's bike park. And then there's the location issue.
Right. So I think really, I guess I would say, this is coming back to you in December and you can continue to discuss it more.
And
There's another like
there's
layer.
another layer. So we have a citizen who reached out to Macy, our town clerk, who wanted to know how he would go about getting this on the ballot. Anyone can put anything on a ballot if you run an initiative.
Yeah.
So for this individual, it is relatively complicated. He would have to draft an ordinance. He would have to get 5% of the registered electors' signatures. And then the board would either adopt the ordinance or put it to an election.
Mhm.
I think you all are aware this pump truck is very controversial in nature. So the reason I wanted to bring it to you is you also could just decide to put it to a vote. To not, you don't get to decide, the board does, but you could offer a recommendation to put this to a vote and say and you kind of stop the process in its tracks in many ways and let it go to a vote. And the question, really, I don't like question number one, but it could be one of two questions. Do you want a pump track? But then there's the where question all over again. Or do you want a pump truck at Topeka and let the voters decide? And then you don't have to run through the NPP process for permitting because the voters would have approved this.
And
So there is some value in PROSAB maybe considering being the ones who say you want it on the election, the ballot, and so it's not put on the citizens to make this happen. So, but I realize we're way over.
Are we
time.
over? Shoot.
No, you're not.
We only have a minute left.
Oh, yeah, you're not. over.
So really quick, my
think this
problem
is worth
with this
taking a
is
look at
that,
next time,
are we
so.
creating a situation where the town is gonna wanna vote on every single thing that
Yeah.
Parks does?
Completely.
And also, if they vote, yes, they want the pump track at Chapita Park, now I have to shift my strategic plan goals somewhere to then somehow secure the funding and get the pump track put
Yeah,
down.
is that like binding, Miranda?
No, it's just your official vote. I mean,
how long
it's
is it?
gonna take a while to get the, I mean, the one thing I could say is you like GoCo funding at that point.
I could-
GoCo funding for, because now the citizens, now it's less about doing maybe a fundraising campaign and you have the backing to go for some grant funding. So that's always an option. Sorry, I have to mute you first. So that's an option, I think you've got a political component here, you have some citizens asking you to put this to an
Yeah.
election. You and the board of trustees have less hoops to get it there. Or you put it on the citizens who may likely go through the steps to do it themselves. And I guess one of my questions is like, think about that from a collaborative standpoint. If you're saying, we're not willing to change our mind at all, citizens, how do we take a more collaborative approach here? It's just something to consider.
Yeah, and I'm fully in favor of like, we just put it on the ballot, let people vote on it. Like, air it out, let people, there's confusion about
Yep.
location for whatever reason, even though we went through the process and that's fine. So air it out, like, let people vote on it. And if it's not, like, I don't think we need to say, do we need a pump track? Because that is in the pros from 2013.
Absolutely.
So like, the community wants that, and that's in there, in my opinion, that's my opinion of it. And so I don't think we're asking the question, do we want a pump track at this point? Because that's been, since 2013, the town has yet to build one, and make that happen. But sure, like location, it has a location on there in the post, actually, a recommended location. I can find it, I will be specific with it when I say it. But I don't even know if it's an available location anymore at this point. I'll look at it, it's like something east of or west of East Street. It's in the post at like the very end. I'll look at it in a second and I'll get the exact language.
Yeah.
But I'm personally recommending, like, happy to do a vote on it, let it go through that process. And then it's like we've moved on through that,
Right, and if
It's fine
that,
by me.
one thing I say is if your question of, do you want a pump track in Topeka Park gets voted down, it doesn't mean you have to abandon the pump track, it just means that
Just find
location
somewhere else.
is not supported by the community. And so I very much understand Nikki, I also think that you've got things like Rink that have nothing but tons of support for many people, like those things we may not see come to a vote. I do appreciate that the community understands their democratic process. They understand what
Yeah.
their rights are. They understand what they can and can't do. And so I guess I take it from PROSAB may want to consider looking at this in a very collaborative approach because not is really saying citizens, we're going to do whatever we want. In some way it gives off that. But
Just
Could
that.
we, could we decide, so we if we were in favor of this idea as PROSAB, we would vote to tell the BOT, to recommend to the BOT to put it on the ballot, right?
You're not deciding anything tonight. This is like,
Yeah.
but you know.
We don't have this on the agenda tonight as an action item, but we'll discuss it, and then I think next month we should probably, you know, Miranda can bring back like, and I think we should probably like with Sam, maybe like clarify some language about what we would be recommending exactly, but.
Yeah, I think we would work with the attorney to draft some language for BOT consideration.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we alerted the citizen who reached out, you know, here's what the process is for an initiative, you know, here, but we also said we did put this before you tonight, and so we encourage them to, and I don't believe that they're on, but we encourage them to at least just kind of monitor how, that you all are willing to talk about this.
Yeah, and I'm fully in support of a vote. Like, I think it's easier. It's a, you know, and there's enough what I'll call like political confusion around it that like just let it go to a vote. It's fine. You know,
Yeah.
it's like easier in that way to move forward with other things that we'd like to do in the future that are, you know, a part of the master plan like this is. So
Yeah.
Where it
And
will give,
I was just gonna say, I like thinking about it as a collaborative.
yeah, why not?
Piece of outreach. I think it's, you know, there are definitely like some like, you know, the big picture concern about like wanting to bring lots of things to a public vote is like more of a theoretical concern, but I think for this particular
But it's
topic,
part of
it
the
seems like it
democratic
might be-
process, you know, and so
Yeah,
it's
it
like,
might be a good
it's
way
good.
to look at it as collaborative, community outreach, clarification, right? Like,
I think it's healthy.
yeah,
And
well, and I also think then people could like, cause I know Sam, you talked about like doing some more outreach on like the design and stuff. And
Yeah,
then
which
that
is what
will,
we'd like to do eventually.
yeah, part of like leading up to that could be sharing the design with
Yeah.
people. And like, I actually think a lot of people would be super psyched about the kid part.
Well, and that's the point of the design process. Ultimately, is like truly to get the, you know, they have to give us something to review. And then there's considerations like, okay, sewer lines, great, that's new, like, and
Yeah.
yes, we could build over them, but that's really silly, right? Like,
That's a bad idea.
it's a bad idea. In Nikki, it sounds like your opinion and like what you shared with me, is that safe to say?
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, we open those manhole covers 2-3 times a
Yeah, it'd
year.
be just like really
Easy.
dumb.
And can I ask a question? Like the pump track, it's like the asphalt part of it, like the
Yeah.
non-kiddo specific, like, is that like, I don't know anything about pump tracks.
It's,
Like,
big
is that
enough to be
enough?
fun.
Right? Is that like a real pump track?
That's what I asked them on the meeting. I was like, okay, well, is this big enough to be fun? Like
Yeah.
this changes our considerations, you know, like my personal thought process to then bring back to the board. And they seem to think yes, like, you know, it was, but that's kind of something that we can ask that question a little more, you know, because the point is to build something fun. So it's like, you know, that's pretty important.
I mean, if it is like,
And so if we need to move the location because the sewers are now part of the equation, like maybe that's what we have to do, you know? Also, the location that is in the Prost is the recommendation, a small mountain bike pump track is added directly west of the multi-use field along East Street. What's,
I don't know
what
what
is
it is.
that?
Curcio.
I think-
How do you put a pump track?
I think
next
it's
to
like-
Curcio?
Do we own land on the west side of East Street?
No.
I was
So then what
confused,
were
like,
they-
how that came about, but that's what it said in the 2013.
Great.
Yeah, no,
I
I'm
love
looking.
I was looking on the map and I was like, I don't really know where this goes.
Glenna's land?
yeah, probably
Is
Glenna
that
Carline's land.
by the
The big-
post office?
Yeah.
Yeah, by the post office.
Oh.
privately owned.
Except that big, not like.
Right. Small details for
Let's
the,
reach out to Glenna.
yeah.
I mean, it was,
They were dreaming big.
right, I was gonna say like
Seriously.
informational, but that's not the right
Wow.
word. Aspirational.
Aspirational. Yeah.
So we are over time,
Yeah.
I let it go because I think this is
Thank you.
super important. Was there any public comment on this particular topic?
And Kathleen, just a reminder, you have to press *6.
Okay, and I will put the 3-minute, or do you want to put it on the screen so she can see it? Kathleen, if you are unmuted, please go ahead.
Yeah, I can't see the screen, so, or I'm going to give you feedback. So, Kathleen Chipai, 32-year resident, 22-year business owner. I am really confused and don't like how the kids' features at the meeting, it was not something people wanted. I also didn't want the kids' feature. I was shocked at what I saw. So I don't like how it all of a sudden now we're talking about a kids feature. I thought the bike pump track was supposed to be the kids feature, that it was supposed to be for kids, not adults. I was against the DDA giving any money to this whatsoever because we hadn't picked a spot. And the community, this is a contentious subject, so the community needs to be in on picking the spot. Now, I am for this being on the April ballot so people can pick the spot. And maybe the question should be, where do you want the pump track? Instead of, I mean, you can limit yourself and say, do you want it at Chipeta? And my feeling is the public's going to say no at Chipeta. Why waste getting a no? Maybe vote on, maybe it can be up by the ice skating rink. Propose some other spots and let people vote on what spot they want a bike pump track. Normally, also, you have to collect signatures. I think if you can't collect signatures to get something on the ballot, then that means you don't have the support of the public. I mean, that's the point of a people's initiative. If enough people want it, they'll get the signatures and they'll get it on the ballot. So normally, I would say I don't believe the BOT should just put this on the April ballot because that'll set precedent. Other people shouldn't have to collect signatures if these people don't have to collect signatures. So that I find, but in this awkward position where we've spent $10,000 of DDA money on design, I think the best thing right now is to put this before the voters and let the people decide, because I don't think Chipeta Park is the right place, and I think if people were given other options, it would go in another place, honestly. And I just want to be fair about what it takes to get something on the ballot. So if I want to get something on the ballot, all I have to do is go ask the Board of Trustees to put it on the ballot instead of collecting signatures. You can't make some people collect signatures and others not. So there's that, that quagmire where in this instance, I myself would say have the BOT put it on the April ballot so we can at least get a vote on Chipeta at minimum, I guess. But my preferred option is to be put all the places that it could be and let people vote on where they would want it if they want it. See, I mean, I don't know what to say. I know the 2013 PROSAB thing says, yes, it mentions a bike pump track. That's all it does, is it mentions it. So I don't even know if it has full support of the public, and I apologize, I've gone over. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. Thank you.
So if I could, I did actually ask our town attorney about that question of like, can you kind of do like a multiple choice voting in some way? It has to be an ordinance, right? It has to have clear language, making it clear what you're voting on. So you really do have to pick a location and put that to the voters.
Right.
Yeah.
The BOT, and I totally understand what Kathleen is saying, and that, that is one of the powers of the Board of Trustees is to decide, and sometimes they may or may not, which then is where the initiative referendum petition comes into place, that allows a citizen, if the board's not willing to put something on the election, citizens have that capacity to do so. I think I do agree that this does make sense, but yeah, your language is gonna have to be very clear and concise of exactly what you're voting on.
Yeah.
I know, Jesse.
All right, Jesse. One last comment from Jesse, and then we need to move on.
Yeah, I was just wondering if we could somehow poll the public and do something, and not necessarily put it on the ballot, but just do a poll of the public and try to get people to declare that they're a Netherlands citizen or not. I mean, I think that people who live just outside of town are also, we represent them here on the PROSAB, and I think it's worth asking them as well. And that could be I feel like that could actually integrate some of the things that Kathleen said really well. Maybe if we do a good thorough poll, we don't have to be so careful about that ordinance language like you mentioned, Miranda, and we could just let the public say, here's 3 spots, which one would you rather see? Or here's 4 spots, I don't know, something like that. Just a thought. And so maybe we can game plan and strategize within our subcommittee in between now and next meeting, and we'll come back with our next recommended action step.
Yeah.
Could that be an Engage Nederland topic, or I don't know. If that's-
Yeah, I mean, I think if you went that way, you're gonna have to make some sort of like declarative statement of like, we're scaling back, right? I mean, I think it gets a little confusing of like, I think you're just gonna be asked like, why now? Like, why did you do that before? Which is fine. I just think you have to be really clear about your messaging, and also that whatever comes from the poll, that's your spot, and the DDA is not funding it.
Not
No,
necessarily fine, because if the public doesn't know why they can't have a pump track in a certain location, and they want it there, they can have it there because there's no space or whatever, I mean, we have to be.
Well, any polling would have to be with pre-approved locations that
Yeah.
are like feasible
Mhm.
and.
And I
Then you
want
get
them
into
to
the
have all the
pre-approved,
information.
Like,
Yeah.
then we're coming in and dictating.
So that we don't just like do this all again.
Yeah, I
Right.
just don't, I would
Because
like
it's
them to
kind of-
have all the information, however it is that we do
Exactly.
that.
Yeah.
I guess the one thing maybe, and just really quick, is just like, you've obviously spent the money from the DDA, so I think you do need to take that into consideration and
Yeah.
honor that arrangement that you've made.
Well, yeah,
Let me go
and
back.
find out if like that design is sort of usable in other spaces, because if it is with like a slight tweak, that's one thing versus if it's totally not usable in another space is a different consideration, you
Yeah.
know? So,
And I think based on the last month's meeting, I think it's specific to like. It's
we
very
kind
site
of-
specific.
Dug a little more to find out like what was possible there, and it generally seems like you're starting with a flat slate anyway, so it can pretty much be put anywhere. We're looking to get like some more official confirmation on that from American Ramp Company, but
I thought the topography played a huge role.
that's what I thought too, and then we were kind of looking at it and you know, just asking other people who build pump tracks too, it's like if you have a flat area, you could just put the thing there, so,
It's gotta be flat.
yeah.
so let's wrap this
But
up.
that's
It sounds.
like confusion at the moment that needs to be
Yeah.
clarified.
So yeah, let's wrap this up and move on, but it sounds like the subcommittee will touch base and figure out sort of what needs to be dug into, what needs to be clarified, and kind of like different strategies and what to bring to PROSAB in December. Does that sound right?
Sounds good.
So, but.
When's the
and-
deadline for getting on the ballot?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I need that subcommittee to meet quickly, you know, I think, I guess what I'm not loving leaving this meeting without clear direction, because we do need to have ballot language prepared. I mean, it's January, February, like you don't have a lot of time.
Without clear direction on what though?
On like, are we engaging our attorney to draft language? Are you doing the poll? Are you kicking that to the subcommittee? And I guess I just want to be clear in avoiding the pump track thing. If you're saying the subcommittee gets to decide, then that's what's gonna happen.
Right.
But if you're saying, if you want to decide between us starting to draft language for a vote or going to a poll, if you're not going to decide that in PROSAB, then you're kind of letting the subcommittee make that choice.
Well, Miranda, I think we can, as a subcommittee, we can go and discuss amongst ourselves and come back with our recommendation to PROSAB, but I don't think PROSAB can guarantee that they're going to support whatever we recommend in any event. Like, they can give us a nod of 4 to draft language for the ordinance, and then, you know, they don't like it and they don't vote for it. So like, they can't pre-promise their vote right now. And I feel like we could discuss amongst ourselves. I think Kathleen brought up some really compelling arguments, and some folks have brought up some compelling arguments. Hey,
I guess I'm just worried that I just am not feeling like there's very clear direction on what's happening. So as long as you feel clear.
Try to decide if I do. It's like,
I mean, I think.
I don't feel clear.
yeah.
I think you're gonna end up in the same 2D situation if we're not very clear on what the next step.
I don't think it's up to PROSAB to necessarily give us that direction, though. I think that this was a really productive and good conversation, and I have some things that I think I'd like to discuss and consider with you and Nikki and Sam. And I don't know, like, we were talking about doing a special meeting in between the last 2 meetings for the pump track, when we thought we knew what we were going to do, to vote it up or down, right, on taking that 2D design to 3D. And now I feel like we could come up with a good plan. I mean, I think Kathleen's brought some really good food for thought that I kind of want to chew on and discuss it a little bit with you and Nikki and Sam.
Yeah.
I think if anybody on PROSAB has a really strong pitch of how they'd like to guide us, then let's hear it. Otherwise, I think it's kind of up to us as a subcommittee to come up with our recommended action step, and then we have to make our pitch at the next meeting to try to get the votes from PROSAB.
I mean, that's kind of where I'm at right now. I don't feel like we can or should be saying exactly what needs to happen right now. That's kind of what the subcommittee needs to do, and then we'll vote on that in December.
That work, okay, and
I guess I'm
go ahead.
struggling with what you're voting on in December.
Could you guys bring an updated 2D? And could you bring ordinance language in the event we want to not approve it and put it on the ballot? Like, could we do both of those for the December meeting?
Yes, I think that's what I'm seeking clear, like, we're requesting that staff engage our town attorney to begin to draft ordinance language. Because the subcommittee is not gonna draft that.
Right, and I think what Jess is saying is could we look at that? What are our options? Do we look at it as an ordinance type vote, or do we look at it as a whole situation kind of thing instead?
Or not. I mean, maybe we don't want to do that either, because as Miranda pointed out, this has been funded for Chipeta Park, and this has gone through the Nederland planning process. And citizens can go and drive and demand that there's a public election on their own. And we are setting a really difficult precedent if some people are upset about it and they say, put it to a vote, and then we say, okay, put it to a vote. We all of a sudden are short-circuiting that citizen engagement of getting the referendum on the ballot with the 6 signatures. And so I think there's a really compelling argument to be made that we just keep marching forward.
Yeah.
And the 2D rendering was published in the Mountaineer, by the way. I didn't, I think these are public meetings, and that 2D rendering was on the meeting, and somebody who writes things at the newspaper got that and published it. It's like half a page.
So how about this? Because
Yeah.
we should move on from this. Let me know if this sounds fine and if this kind of like gets to what you're getting at. I think like the subcommittee needs to put their heads together,
Yeah.
figure out what the proposed next step is, and if that's something, if we have to vote on it before they can engage staff, then I guess we can have like an interim meeting, but I think it's mostly up to the subcommittee to like look at all the thoughts and ideas, confer with you all, and then bring something to the December meeting for us to vote on, whether we want to support it going to the ballot, whether we want to do a different strategy, etc. Like I
just think time, you're gonna have to have a special, because an ordinance needs to be before the Board of Trustees by June.
Okay, but
You
we
just
didn't know that.
don't have time.
What's our deadline? Because
I think
it's,
you have to have an ordinance ready to go by January.
January what?
I'd have to look.
Yeah, so I think we need to know what the deadline is and like what our options are. But I
And then
also
I think
think,
after this, even, I'm like considering, okay, do we recommend a vote as a subcommittee even, like.
Yeah.
Wanting to think about that after some of the consideration.
I'm open to a special meeting in early December to move this along.
I know that makes it more challenging, potentially, so I apologize, but.
what
Do
does?
you want to
The be-
calendar? Like, is that a good outcome of this time right now, Miranda?
I mean, I'm not trying to hold up. Is it possible that we move on and then if people can stay at 7:30, we can revisit this? Because I do think that I'm still not even really clear what you're doing. So can we pause this and then come back to it? Because like I said, it's confusing. You can also just not vote on the ordinance and just say, you all wanted to go to a ballot and we'll take it onto the board. I mean, I'm not quite sure I'm understanding the timeline. So is it possible to just move on from this and then revisit it at the end? Because I know you want to move on with the agenda.
Sure, I guess so. I mean, is there something specific you want, because I know we're not voting on anything.
Well,
right?
I'm
So,
just, to me, it's like, I don't know why a decision can't be made on you're drafting an ordinance for consideration at your next meeting or you're not. Like, I don't know why it has to go back to a subcommittee at all. Like, I guess I'm not really understanding why we wouldn't just debate that out right here and make that
Yeah.
decision tonight so that we can go back and do that as staff. Why it has to go back to the subcommittee.
but
Okay,
I guess we can't, but my understanding is this was to be a discussion, so then we could vote on it in December.
Right,
Like,
you
we're
would have
not
to-
gonna make a decision on anything tonight, because it's not,
But you're giving staff direction on what you want us to work on. We're not gonna go work on an ordinance and spend town attorney time
right.
without clear direction from PROSAB as a whole. Unless PROSAB is saying you're gonna give that authority to the subcommittee to make that decision on your behalf.
I don't think that's necessarily a good idea either.
So we need to give Miranda a nod of 4 on something is what she's asking for. And my
And if that-
personal feelings on the matter right now is that I don't feel like recommending a vote to the BOT.
Motion on the table,
There's no
like,
motion. A nod of 4 is giving direction on what we should be
Okay.
doing between meetings.
I.
Because right now, I'm not really clear what your direction is. And if your direction is send it back to the subcommittee to debate, to bring it back to you in PROSAB in December, you don't have enough time to draft an ordinance before that has to go to the Board of Trustees.
So I think if there's a strong feeling that we should recommend to the BOT that this go on the ballot, somebody needs to make their pitch right now. Otherwise, I don't think you have the nod of 4 and we'll lose our chance. So this is our last chance to recommend that it goes on the ballot, I think is what Miranda's getting at.
I don't think it's your last chance. I think you're then committing to having a special meeting. It sounds. But I think
Or,
maybe
yeah.
that's what, that's to Alex's point. Maybe that's what you're
I
saying.
think that's the
Subcommittee
reason.
go meet, we'll come back together in 2 weeks, and then you'll decide at that meeting what you want to do.
That sounds not getting ahead of ourselves to me. And still giving us the potential to engage the town attorney if it's needed for the ordinance language.
So I think what you would be coming back at your special meeting wouldn't be with an ordinance. It would be
Gotcha.
with the subcommittee's final recommendation. And then at that time, if it's go draft an ordinance, we would draft an ordinance in time for your review at your December meeting for a vote to then go to the Board of Trustees in January.
I like that plan.
And
Because
that special meeting could be 10 minutes long, right?
essentially, right, it's just super quick,
Don't
likely
to.
But
Yeah.
half an hour.
I think
and
if we're gonna do that, then it'd be really helpful before the meeting to know like exactly what we need to decide, what the
Yeah.
options are, and that, because I think that's
Yeah,
why this is taking
leading
so
up
long.
to
I
it,
think-
yeah.
I don't think we all came in with the same, I had no idea that we had to make decisions about what was happening next, so, and I know it seems like that's generally, so I think just like to like be respectful of like the timeline though, we
Yeah.
can do the interim meeting if that's something that we can get on the calendar, so,
Let's do that,
but I
and
like
then
it.
we'll go from there. Because there's location and there's design, and those are the two things, they're kind of different.
And the poll versus ordinance.
Yeah, yeah. like
Or
what's the
neither.
approach?
Or neither.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Neither.
Or neither, right?
Public
I'm
planning.
kind of in favor of neither at the moment.
Are we wanting to meet on the 30th? Are we wanting to set that time now?
Can't, because that's a planning commission. I think you're gonna need a little time. If you're trying to do it now, you only have a handful of dates that are.
Yeah, and let's, yeah, not
I'm
try to
always
schedule
looking
it right
Oh,
now.
okay, I'm just,
Yeah.
there seems to be a desire for concrete action coming out of this, so a date that we're meeting would be concrete action.
Yeah. Is that something that like you all can schedule, or how does that work? What is a special meeting? Or is that something?
And we
that
only need,
That's something the subcommittee needs to schedule?
I think that you and Sam can technically call. for
Okay,
it. The
cool.
question is, then do we have quorum? But
Yeah,
you two as leadership can make that decision if I give you a couple options.
that sounds great.
Cool.
Sorry to further confuse everything. Try and clear it up.
No, I think it's a meaty question, and I think there's a lot to consider. So
Yeah.
It's understandable. So we're not gonna have time to do the rest of the stuff on here, in full. So do we wanna start with the recreation update and then try to do the Prost chapter pretty quick? Does that make sense?
The district will be quick. So for many a year, they've tried to create a parks district, similar to the district that the library, falls in, or the fire department falls in. And that has been shot down a time and again because of the conflicting lands. The Forest Service has lands, the BLM has lands, the Boulder County Open Space has lands, and for us to try and take over their parks would not be feasible. And also, that would also, creating a district, town would lose its assets. And town would lose Chipeta Park, we'd lose the skate park, we'd lose the rink. That would become part of the district. So to create a district, at this point in time, it's not to say that it's not doable, not to say that it's never gonna happen, but, it comes with a ton of challenges. And a lot of votes and a lot of taxes and all of those marvelous things that can create problems. Any questions?
Is there an example of one in the state?
The Parks District?
Yeah.
Well, I'm certain.
I linked to the map of all the districts.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
You're way ahead of me.
Well, there's like different kinds of like special, like they're considered like special districts, like they're like quasi-governmental, quasi like corporation, like legal entities. And so they're like kind of like a government, but not like I know there's like recreation districts.
Yeah, I meant recreation.
Oh, okay.
That's
Yeah.
specifically.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I know
There's a lot of them.
It does blow my mind coming from not Colorado that this happens, but it's a story for another.
Well, I kind of started asking questions about the recreation district after two things happened to me. First was Nikki and I went to Bentonville, and we were marveling at all the amazing things that they had. And something that you mentioned to me, Nikki, was something that you had you told me at the time, if I recall correctly, that you had been advocating for a recreation district for several years. And so I started wondering about what that was, and we talked a little bit. And I think you mentioned at the time there was a lot of challenges, and it seemed like it was potentially not very feasible, but it was a way in which a lot of funds could get raised for facilities and whatnot. So that was the first thing. And then the second thing that occurred to me is we went to this swimming pool in Idaho Springs because Gilpin Pool was closed and the Boulder Pool was closed. And I took my daughters to the Idaho Springs pool, and it was super awesome. And I started asking about, is this run by the town or what? And they said, oh, it's this recreation district. And so I was like, oh, this is really neat. Let me try to learn a little bit more about it. And then, I kept asking some more questions here and there, and Nikki said she could come and talk to us about it. So Idaho Springs has a great swimming pool and a recreation district. So that's why I thought it was worth us exploring, because a swimming pool is the number one item requested by the citizens on the PROST.
Yes.
And so I'm just asking, how are we going to get it done?
Is it true that you would lose all your assets though? Because I see
The town-
Gunnison County has a metropolitan recreation district, but I know for a fact that Crested
Chipeta
Butte
Park
and
would
now
not be
Crested Butte
controlled by
have
the
their
town.
own assets within that district.
I mean, yeah, they could choose to keep something, but then the district has to give up something.
Okay.
And the other thing too is we giving
allows
up
the town to
the,
keep it and then like.
Well, yeah, I'm looking at this map and I know of
Right.
locally owned recreational districts within the recreational assets.
so in
within
order
their-
to fund the district though, like the Forest Service at one point in time said, you can take over West Magnolia, but we'll keep the land, but you have to clean the bathrooms and take care of all the trash and do all of the things.
Mhm.
And then you can like force people to pay for campsites and that kind of thing, and then you manage the campsites.
Yeah, you're like a
It's-
contractor.
Not to say that it can never happen, it's complicated, I could lose my job, that would be sad, but oh well,
Is there a way to do it where you retain like the majority of the infrastructure, just like a different framework around it? Because I think the goal with the idea is to see, is this a leverage point that's possible to just like bring a lot more money into the community and that's available? Like, that's the goal, not to oust anybody that's, currently, like, not Nikki, for you to lose your job. Like, that's not the goal.
I think though, and I can't speak for
Yeah.
the board of trustees, but really just kind of financially, why would we have a department that takes, that's revenue that could get split in other ways? So, too, don't want to lose Nikki, but anyways, I'm not sure financially why that would make sense for the town if there was a different funding stream for parks.
And I don't know either. It's just like, what is the available way to like bring in the money to even just town in general, you know, and then it gets split up into parks kind of thing.
Who runs the district?
The district.
Yeah, it's like its own quasi-autonomous like
We
government.
would elect, the board of trustees would elect people then to manage.
It can't be run by the government
No.
whatsoever.
The district elects the
Yeah,
people. in the
that's
district.
like the other thing, is
What
it can't actually be done by
You
any of
like-
us.
The map, there would be a map drawn out. So
Okay.
like the fire department is a district.
Yeah,
They have their own board of trustees, their own rules.
how do they instantiate those board of trustees?
They vote.
Who? The
The
people?
people.
So
The
why
people in
couldn't,
the district.
why couldn't the people in the district vote for Nikki to be the,
So they would vote for board members and then they would hire executive director and have staff.
okay. So
So
it's,
and not just me, and my staff too, would be, so
okay,
I'm enjoying running the parks department and I'm enjoying the way that it's working right now. And I'd like to try and make it happen for a few years. If we can't make it happen, then maybe we need to consider creating a district.
But just a reminder, when we say we, it's not the we.
Not me.
we don't.
Right.
Yeah.
You
Not me.
don't do it as private
Like
citizens,
any
not as
private citizen
representatives.
Yeah.
of the citizens.
Initiate.
And the only reason we'd want to potentially entertain this is for funding. That's it, the only reason, the biggest reason.
It's a large.
Well, it's
tax
right
base.
now, yeah, like our department's only funded by the 1,500 people that live in town.
Yeah.
Right,
like,
Whereas
tax.
but if
we
it
could
was,
leverage a wider tax base to
Okay.
fund more.
gotcha.
The library district right now goes like to Boulder County line at Kelly Doll,
And the
basically,
library is
and then
beautiful in case.
past Sugarloaf,
Okay,
Right.
that kind of thing.
okay.
You said something at the beginning that I think alluded to this too, because like, in order to make this happen, like a bunch of other entities would have to give up
Or
control.
get on board with it.
Yeah, either be, yeah, exactly. They'd have to cede some power over some of their land,
Sure,
because like,
okay.
who else's land are we recreating on besides like the Forest Service and like Boulder County? So like, it's much more complicated than just like
Take
taking
it
over the town parks department, right? Like,
Right, yes.
not to say that it's like, because you could also think about like, why not, like, because Vales is like very wiggly
Like
waggly.
corridor.
Yeah, it's like a corridor. Some of them aren't, but like you could see like an argument for doing like an area outside of town limits or something like that. But then you have to get like the federal government is like, right, to
Yeah.
like a seed authority. And it's clearly possible. There's lots of them.
Yeah, I mean, there's tons of federally owned land. around
Yeah,
the state.
and my guess is actually BLM is quite familiar with this because a lot of this looks like it's BLM land, but it's definitely like a complicated mix of stuff.
Oh, Bales is so funny. I
What?
didn't see it. Bales is so funny.
Yeah, it's like down, it's like goes down. to
Quick
Irish,
question with the
basically.
Forest Service thing, and then we can move on from it if you guys want, is, or if you all want, is, what's the deal though? So the Forest Service just goes like, oh, you're managing it now, like you have to do it all, if you make a district, and they just,
I think you
sounds kind of lazy.
sign something that like.
Oh, I'm
they-
saying there's agreements.
Is there like an agreement to be like, well, Forest Service, you
MOU.
manage your stuff, and we'll manage our stuff, and like draw that line around their stuff, you know?
No. They keep all the good stuff. That's the use stuff. They're like, we'll keep the easy stuff and the pretty stuff.
Do we then get to like
You get
enforce
West
stuff with that
Mag.
band recreationally?
Huh?
Parks, like component,
What?
is that land change how it's like protected or something then? Or you just have to like basically be like, oh, we'll clean all the facilities now and maintenance, I mean,
It would all depend on the agreements made between the two entities.
oh, okay. So
And
there's,
that would also be something that would have to be voted on by the people that would be in that district because their taxes would be raised.
yeah, right.
So, and they just had their taxes raised last year
Yeah, that's fire department.
by the fire department.
Right,
So they might not be thrilled about that.
for sure.
Right, because it's, people are still.
Cause they
paying-
would wonder why they were paying for Chipeta
Two.
Park.
Yeah, no, no.
They'd still be paying all their normal Boulder County taxes and then,
And then you're just layering on top of that
Yeah.
versus like, okay, well, maybe the district's not the way, maybe there's a different way to bring, a
What?
different leverage point to bring more of that money into town.
Well, I think maybe what I would argue is it's recreational tourism. And I'm gonna say the word, but
Well, it's.
I mean,
fine.
that's the truth
That's-
be told, it's maximizing what's already happening.
Yeah.
Recreational tourism is, I would argue, the area of focus. And that's really what the Tourism Advisory Council is kind of for, is to navigate things like that. I mean, people are coming.
Yeah,
We just need to maximize
their experiences, and so they spend money.
Money from that.
Nikki comes out of the general fund, which is primarily served by property and sales tax. It's that sales tax that
Get more
is
people.
a
in the
revenue
ring.
stream,
Yeah.
but tactfully, you know.
Yeah,
doing it
well, of course,
tactfully,
Okay, well, I think the idea of this in my mind personally was just to understand, like, is this a viable, reasonable, like leverage point to get more money, you know,
Yeah.
reasonably per town? And it sounds like it's a real pain in the ass to do. Or like, I'll say it bluntly, and it has a lot of consequences and it's frustrating and there's a lot there. You can put that on the record. And, that we have potentially other opportunities if we leverage them well that can serve that desired, like,
Yeah.
the fact that oftentimes one of the challenges is funding for things.
All right.
So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thanks, Nikki. I'm stoked that you're enjoying the job, and I'm totally in support of just watching and continuing to see you be successful. I think that's our best path forward.
Thanks, Jesse.
Yeah, thanks.
Most days I have the best job in town.
And mine's probably a little better.
You probably might be right. Some days.
Alrighty, so now, last item, other than other business, is the first update.
So I'm sorry, I did send this out late and later than I wanted to, but, chapter 3, I think we had mentioned this last time. We're really hoping that the CU students that we applied for through Dr. Cog will help us with the bulk of chapter 3. If that doesn't happen, we'll switch gears and go back to B, C, and D. So all we did is take some demographic data. You know, of course, there was a third party who had access to plenty more data sites, legitimate data sites than what you can just Google. And so I really utilized prior applications and other studies to pull together the best demographic data I could. Dr. Cog is willing to assist us a little bit further, but didn't have enough time to get it in. So what I really gave you is disproportionately impacted and environmental justice populations, which is how CDOT really identifies these populations in this chart here. Brought in some aging data and some housing data, as well as school enrollment. So this is kind of just to get us started. And I guess really the question is, any questions, any concerns, any big demographics you want to be sure we try to obtain data for?
I think I already said people with disabilities.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't, there was nothing, and I thought that there was that in the transportation plan.
Yeah,
There
which
was
kind of shocks me because
I know.
one would think that that.
Yeah,
would
I
be-
mean, it's in the chart. Individuals with disabilities, 177 in the half a mile around Nederland.
Uh-huh,
But that's all that was
Yeah.
asked about, and for some reason I thought there was more. So,
yeah,
so realizing that we didn't have a ton, but could at least get piecemealed information started. That's really what I did here, just pulled from a variety of different grant sources where you had to cite some demographic data.
yeah. And I think the key demographics are just like population isn't really growing, it's aging. And what's one more? The third
And
three.
getting wealthier.
Yeah. And getting
A
all
lot.
And getting healthier, yeah,
And a
so
important thing to know.
and-
with the-
it's like strikingly similar population to whatever they had in here from 2011. So really nothing
Yeah.
changed.
Although, yeah, it's all the surrounding areas that we were just talking about that are growing.
Right, but town limits.
Us.
And the other big change we made was limiting to town limits, not the library district, because there was no Parks Department when they wrote the last edition of the pros. So we noted that we do pull from beyond town limits, but we limited our demographic data to.
Yeah, you know, thanks for that, Alex. The CDOT data, of course, does pull a little bit further, but really why we felt like we need to stick in Nederland is we're not funding things outside of Nederland. And so while yes, there's value in understanding recreational opportunities and we'll cite them, this data needs to be grounded in what we would seek funding for. And so what they're doing in unincorporated is great, but.
A good example that Miranda brought up when we were talking about it, because we were all asking that question, like, does it make sense? Is we can't impact what we do in the town of Eldora, but if we're talking about them, then it's sort of a confusing matter.
It would skew data. in many
Yeah,
ways. And so, you know, I also want to, well, the more Boulder County you pull in, your data is going to start to get skewed. Because this is a very wealthy county, not necessarily a wealthy community. So there is some kind of danger in some way of pulling in larger demographic data because especially Boulder County, because it makes few things pregnant.
I have a question on the chart, the DI and EJ population
Yeah.
chart. What's the regional percentage?
So the regional percentage is and I can take that out. It's region 4 for CDOT, which is Boulder County, parts of Denver. There's a map for region 4. And so it's just showing like, where is Nederland in comparison to the region as a whole? And we may want to keep that. I can just make that a little bit clearer that that's CDOT region 4 and then provide a map to CDOT region 4. Yeah. So people can see in comparison to our surrounding neighbors, this is how we compare.
Yeah.
I did get a chance to read this quickly before the meeting, and if it's okay with, because we're doing this again next month, right? So we're not like finalizing this tonight.
Which is
Chapter 3. Yeah, no, we won't come back to chapter 3 till we have Dr. Cog
Oh, okay.
input.
Can I offer a friendly amendment to the second paragraph under Nederland context? And I'm happy to draft it based on previous information to expand the section about indigenous people in this area.
Yeah.
And talk a lot more about the history there and the richness of I think, I can get a lot of that information from like Right Relationship and like other indigenous organizations. It won't be coming from the community but although maybe we can figure out if someone could look at it, but I think it should be like, expanded if possible.
Would you be open to sending that language? I think.
Yeah.
If you want to email it, the Google Drive gets to be a real wonky mess.
We can drop.
Who should I email it to so I don't
To me.
break any rules?
And also I'll put it into the Google Drive, but then I'll also, because I have all the clean copies on my computer.
Okay.
And then eventually it'll all come into one not so big book. Because we also talked about, how wonderful would it be if this was like clear, concise, 50 pages, right?
Yeah.
Something Nikki can
Yes.
give to her staff and they can read and
Yes.
not have a 300-page document.
Maybe we can do it together.
The master plan right now is about 300 pages, and to have something that was more chewable is it would be really nice. There's no reason that it has to be 300 pages. There are a lot of maps and a lot of things, and we're about to have our comp plan, our multimodal transportation plan. All of these different plans are coming down the pipe at me, so I'm gonna have huge books from other plans. If we can keep the parks plan like this thick.
Yes.
Hey, guys, read this over the weekend.
Yeah.
Well, I pushed why we even need this section in it, and Miranda pointed out it's good for Nikki to have
For grants.
for grants. Although query, if we're just referencing multimodal data or whatever, can't we just say, see the 2023 multimodal plan data, and then Nikki
Sure.
just goes there and pulls the grant data, but
Yeah. Or we could try at the end to like make this like, so it's like 25, 30 pages at the beginning. That's like your main thing. And then there's like, you can look at this other appendices or whatever if you actually
but
need
not
all the,
crucial.
so you don't have to like lug it around.
Yeah, I would say this section is very much subject to change because even then, like, this is our application, not even the multimodal transportation data that will come out later. And so I think just to have something, chapter 4 is really a lot of Nikki taking the initial stab at it, and then we'll all come in behind her, but we really need Nikki to take.
Chapter 4 is an inventory of current assets, so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I just say, I thought Dr. Cog was a real person. And
Oh,
I
sorry.
literally put him in the minutes as Dr. Cogson. I was like trying to look them up. And then I was like, oh, it's literally just an acronym.
Just an acronym.
That's a go.
Dr. Cog, he's helping us with the minutes.
What a guy. What a girl.
Not the first person to think that. So positive.
Pediatrician.
He's a powerhouse, yeah. He's a powerhouse out there. Really helping the government.
Yeah. Valued member.
Yeah, it's true. Probably got streets named after him and stuff. I don't know.
Dr. Cog Boulevard.
Oh my gosh.
And then the pump track acronym.
That works.
Just like a third
You
rail
know,
on a pump track.
Do we want to have a pump track discussion?
Oh, yeah.
Try to get to a decision for.
Well, I was just,
I thought we did.
if you're going,
Oh.
I can give you the dates really quick.
Oh, right, yes.
If you keep your meeting to just an hour, Monday, the 27th, wide open. Tuesday, the 28th, Wednesday, the 29th, you need to keep it to an hour and an hour only, because there are meetings that come right after you.
I would like the pressure of keeping it to an hour personally.
Totally.
Is
Yeah.
this for subcommittee or full PROSAB?
Full PROSAB.
Okay.
I'd prefer to not.
Or
do
not.
that.
I mean, you could come in person because all the
Not do
meetings are
Monday.
set up.
It's my day off and I really, really
Better,
covet my days off.
Respect.
Yeah.
Well, the meetings will already be set up because there are meetings after you, so you're welcome to still do it hybrid if you want, or come in person if you want, because meetings will already be set.
So sorry, so not Monday, but what are the other two options?
Tuesday the 28th or Wednesday the 29th, and my preference would be Tuesday the 28th because we don't do a full, we probably wouldn't have, no, I guess we still have a full board. I don't care what you do.
And we could still do, would people want to do still 5:30 or you were saying?
You'd have to do it at 5:30
we
and
have
end
to-
at 6:30.
Okay.
Either day works for
I
me.
mean, you can do it earlier if you wanted to.
Say the date.
Have to end at
Sorry, I'm just
6:30.
pulling up my calendar.
Yeah, too.
No.
The Tuesday after Thanksgiving or the Wednesday after Thanksgiving? I also, is that enough time for the subcommittee to meet?
The 20.
Yeah.
No,
that's-
it's just a weekend.
the
No, we
holiday?
meant next week, it's a holiday.
Yeah, I mean.
Okay.
And you'll send
We'll make
like,
it.
okay.
Yes. I don't care.
I don't care either.
Can I vote for
I
Wednesday?
just feel like we're super to being able to give Miranda direction right now, and I feel like we could probably give it that to her in 6 minutes.
Oh,
I think that is the,
That's the other.
that'd be sweet.
Yeah, I mean, I'm open to it.
We have 6 minutes?
yeah,
And then we don't have to do a special meeting.
yes,
I guess, Miranda, I feel like Sam and I are both pretty meh about it. We could say yes, that let's put it to a vote, that's cool, or no, let's not put it to a vote, that's cool too. I can see merits in both sides, so I don't have strong feelings about it.
yeah,
Do you have strong feelings about it?
well, not as staff, no. I think typically with the discussion, we get some sort of like direction. And so I
Yeah.
think you could pull kind of the group and see what the consensus is, what the four is, and then we go and do that. It's not a vote, it's just enough of a direction. So how the board does this is it's not a four. We get four people to say, yes, go draft that ordinance. That's what we're gonna do. You're not voting on anything. You're just giving us the direction that that's what you want to do. And right now it just is feeling a little bit like, I have no idea what we're doing.
So here's a question. If we draft the ordinance, we obviously, and then decide if we want to use it or not.
Right.
Right?
Right,
So-
you're just saying that's why you want staff and the attorney to spend our time.
I don't want to waste y'all's time, you know?
It could be a waste of their time.
And money.
Yeah,
money.
well, that's what I mean, like,
Attorney.
time, money.
Well, let's just poll the group really quick.
So I have a question too.
Yeah,
What
is
happens
everybody
if we
feel
do
ready?
no- so the options are poll, ordinance, or do nothing.
Yeah.
So if we do nothing, what is that?
Well, doing nothing means we just continue forward with the process as we have been.
Says signatures and gets it put on the ballot.
Maybe.
Which is also an
Maybe,
appropriate
maybe.
demographic.
And if not,
Maybe.
and
And
if that
if-
individual chooses not to do that, then
We
what?
just move.
Then
through-
we just keep going.
Then we approve the plans and then,
For the location based on, okay, oh,
and
okay.
then you
Yeah.
get like funding.
And then there's another opportunity at that point, when we're in the planning, what process is it that people can
Yeah,
then?
when you go for your building permit, there's a public hearing.
So it's, we vote on the 2D, then we get the 3D, then you get public input on the 3D, then we do final approval, and then you pull the permits. Did I summarize that
After we
correctly?
get money.
Okay, I feel
And-
clear now.
There's some other things.
I feel, yeah, I feel.
And then the other piece of that is if we vote, I haven't exactly decided whether I feel like it makes sense to do a vote. I was one way and then I'm like changing my mind a little. But, is if we vote on it, then when it gets to the planning stage, is it correct that it doesn't then get voted on? Like it doesn't have the opportunity to be voted down because it's been directed to BHP? That's just,
I mean, the board of
Am I
trustees
asking
would
that
have a
question?
public hearing and then they would vote to approve kind of the build, really.
yeah,
Because it's use by right, the way the code is it's use by right, but with a public hearing. So the board would ultimately vote and probably have a resolution of sorts or maybe an
Okay.
ordinance approving that location.
so
Now,
it's kind of similar either way.
yeah, I mean,
Like, the only reason I feel like it makes a ton of sense to go to a vote is if it just like locks the location. Yes, it's collaborative politically, that's nice. And I'm totally into that idea generally, but then also the question was if it allows the community to say, yeah, we want it here, or we don't want it there. And if it is a yes, then as we move forward in the process, then it's make it easier down the line to just keep moving forward
well,
with it without.
yeah, I mean, you have the vote, like people
Yeah.
may not have liked the vote, but the
It's
people
voted.
spoke.
Right.
This is where
So
And then
that's
you would
kind
go
of the
to secure
benefit of the potential of a vote and just sort of being preemptive with it. And then the other side is like, we just let the person that, because we really, yes, we've heard objection. We've only had, one person like write in that they wanted to put it on the ballot.
Yeah, don't be swayed by the loudest voices in the room kind of thing. Like,
Well, and they have an opportunity, and it's been made clear, which is the appropriate thing, for here's how the democratic process works, if you want to pursue this, and you're welcome to. And I think,
And I can also add that the BOT can independently put it on the ballot, even if we don't recommend to them that they do that.
Right, I think we felt as staff it was appropriate to bring this to your discussion, but yeah, you can- this will go, and again, you don't have to, you wanna just have your special, so you can go home and think about it. I think that was
that'd be
really,
kind of nice to just like knock it out if we
Sure.
can. Personally, but I'm open.
2 minutes.
Okay.
Can I make a counterpoint?
Go ahead.
I do feel after, I
That's
was
the point.
persuaded after last meeting, because I was feeling persuaded by the people in the room that we weren't being collaborative enough.
Yeah,
And that you had an excellent point, as did I think a few other people, that the process to date has been extremely open to the public. We have given ample opportunity for people to speak and be involved in this process. That's the first point. The second is that the DDA, we want to maintain a good relationship with the DDA.
totally.
And we move forward the way that we did with the collaboration in place with Chipeta Park. And it would feel a little backwards to go back to the drawing board and potentially strain relations with the DDA by doing that process.
so I would say the DDA didn't vote on it being at Chipeta Park, and so the relationship got strained from the vote not being clear enough.
Kind of from the get-go.
Fair, and maybe it's more of like a mirror, like a perception of a strain, because you're right. They didn't vote on the place,
Yeah.
but it may be even more of a damage to the reputation if we go back to the drawing board and we're like, oh, we didn't have it together from the beginning. Yikes, we didn't do a good enough job at pulling in community feedback from the start. Yikes. I would say that doing nothing at this point is the best thing, and to continue down the process.
Yeah.
If someone from the community wants to go forth and put a vote,
I think I would encourage.
absolutely,
Please.
please do if you feel strongly about it. But I do think that the course that we're on is following the diligence, and I think that we're on a good path. I'm done.
and,
I took
and,
it
and
forward.
the DDA knew it wasn't gonna be at Rink because they couldn't fund something at Rink, correct?
Yes.
Yeah,
So they knew it was going to be within their very small
District.
area. Correct?
I can't really say what they knew, what they didn't know.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean,
And I think
I would say it was a confusing
it's
vote that
clear that
night.
there's confusion around that, and I'll be the first to apologize for that and go back to the drawing board if we need to.
Yeah.
But based on yours, I'm happy to also just move forward as is and not recommend it as a vote and encourage that person that wrote in, I'm blanking on the name, so I apologize, or anyone who would like to please, use the democratic process, because that's why it's there.
so I don't think there's enough for, do we wanna meet in 2 weeks?
And I think like where I'm at right now is like, I actually don't feel strongly about any of the different directions, because I think they all have their pros and cons. I think my primary concern is, sort of reamping sort of some of the public outreach with like really clear sort of why this location versus that location, and like what this is gonna be and the benefits to the community, and like, and the, with the design as like here's what we're gonna do, like, I do think that there's some like collaboration with the community that like we could build upon with cause at the beginning, like with all this, like the outreach that you all did, like, and all the public stuff was like amazing and wonderful. And I think like now might be a really good time to go back out there. Like it's essentially, it's
Absolutely.
making a case,
Totally.
right? Because if we don't make the case, like
Yeah,
rumors and incorrect information are all over the place.
Yeah.
So I guess that's like my main concern, like whatever strategy we go forward with, my main concern is like really re-upping some really great public outreach to like get the word out to people about like what's going on and like kind of organize around it. This is my career for 20 years, is organizing people around
Right.
things. So that's my orientation, but like, cause like, yeah, so that's my 2 cents but I don't really feel strongly about what strategy is gone forward, so.
well, I'm open to going around and doing Do we need to do a motion to do it out of four?
This
Okay.
is just a not a four, that's what the discussion nature.
I would, do we open that? I haven't done it.
Yeah, I mean, the way the board often does it is they go around and they share their opinion, then we start to
Okay.
figure out like, what is the majority?
I'm kind of in line with, what Kate is saying at this point, and I like that.
So I think it's stay the course.
Stay the course. No,
Go to a
don't
vote.
recommend it, to be put on the ballot.
Okay.
And, encourage the citizen democratic process to take place.
Alex is nodding.
I agree.
So these are not-
I'm worried about the process.
Are there
Yeah.
other people who nod in support of that? And Jesse, you'll have to be verbal about, and Lindsay, verbal about yours.
Yes, I agree that we stay the course.
I kind of like the
And
idea
I
of
think we
getting
encourage.
oh, go ahead.
Say it again, Lindsay.
I was saying that I kind of like the idea of a vote if we could get it to be like very specific places, not just like, do you want to actually put a park or not? But I don't feel strongly one way or the other, but I would lean towards that.
Casey Cornelio.
I guess you technically have four nods, so
Four nods of do nothing.
four nods of staying the course.
Yeah, I think we should also say the course. My only other thought was using the designs and putting this on Engage Nederland, to have a conversation, to keep, I don't know, to have that as like a
It is,
designated
though.
public outlet.
It is, but not the new design. We don't have the new 2D yet.
Okay, yeah.
Wait, who are you counting as the four nods?
Jesse,
Three of us,
Jess, Kate, Alex.
Did you
Yeah.
nod to do
Yeah,
nothing?
stay the course.
So we're doing nothing, no special meeting.
No special meeting needed.
All right. All good? Wrapped up? Cool.
When's the citizens deadline? Same thing, January?
If they want to get it on the April ballot.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Any
They probably have
Other-
technically until February.
any other business?
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, sorry, any other business?
That's my
That is the other business.
All right,
Motion to adjourn.
I second that.
All in favor.